Sean's baby is on the way. You better not come back.
Lisa just blurted out cheerfully with heartless words.
It's quite the sisterly bond we have, giving birth to the same man's children, isn't it? We're really close. But sadly, our kids won't get along. Because, you see, my child will be happy, but Sophia's child is doomed to misery.
It seems Lisa shamelessly made herself get into the house left empty for my journey back home to give birth. It's all Sophia's fault for not cherishing Sean. Always complaining about such a wonderful man who could do anything, right? Serves you right. Now you're truly cursed with misfortune. Being verbally assaulted so directly was almost refreshing. My heart has grown so cold I can't even recall Sean's warmth anymore.
Well, I'm gonna be happy with Sean, a wealthy and kind doctor. Sophia, you should just smile and bless us.
I could tell her right now that it's Lisa who'll be biting her lip. But I chose not to say a word. Why rain on her parade? She'll self-destruct on her own anyway. I'm Sophia Foster, 30 years old. I got into a relationship with the man I admired. He's Sean. Sean, a classmate from middle school, was tall and handsome even then. A star in the basketball team, capturing many girls' hearts. I harbored a crush, too, but kept it to myself until graduation. Just a sweet first love memory. Meeting Sean again at a 15-year class reunion was unexpected.
Actually, I had a crush on you back in middle school, Sophia.
I thought I misheard. When Sean suddenly shared that, I nearly dropped my glass.
No way! Sean liked plain and serious Sophia? Impossible! That's got to be a joke.
The girls who stood out in class all laughed together. I just gave a vague smile. Probably just a dare or something. Confessing to plain old me just for kicks, it must be some kind of twisted entertainment. But Sean continued with a puzzled look.
It's no lie. The novels you always read, they're all my favorites too. I thought we'd definitely hit it off. I felt like we could talk about so much. But I just couldn't muster the courage. I'll talk to her today, I'd think, and then I'd just end up watching you from afar. And then, bam, I realized, do I like Sophia? That's how it went.
Faced with a confession I never imagined, I went beyond blushing to feeling dizzy and almost fainting. Sean caught me as I stumbled, and the room erupted in excitement. As a result, we started dating. Sean wanted to live together right after we started our relationship.
I want to be with Sophia all the time.
How could I say no to that? I nodded like a bobblehead doll. Sean was unlike any man I'd dated before. He was so capable, I almost felt like worshipping him as an all-knowing deity. First off, Sean's cooking was like something out of a top-notch restaurant.
A pie-wrapped confit of duck from France, served with seasonal vegetables. Here, try it with the truffle sauce.
It was like a dream to have such meals at home. For my birthday, he serenaded me with his guitar.
I stayed up nights to create this song for Sophia.
He gifted me with a melody just for me. And it wasn't just on special occasions that he surprised me.
Look, I bought a massage chair. It's the latest model and they say it feels like floating on clouds. A little reward for you, Sophia, you work so hard.
Coming home on a tiring Friday. I find a massage chair in our living room. Sean, expecting me to jump for joy, looked at me intently.
Wow, this is amazing. Thank you. Sean, you're the best. I love you.
That was the reaction Sean was looking for. I knew it, but my face couldn't hide the strain. How much did this cost? Sean's expression clouded over instantly. It cost $16,000, he said.
16,000.
I was overwhelmed by the staggering amount and felt a headache coming on.
I just wanted to make Sophia happy. And the first thing you worry about is the price? I always tell you, stop that.
He tries to please me with his actions, but I can't fully appreciate them. At first, I truly admired Sean, thinking he was incredible and wonderful. A little luxury now and then is fine. But Sean spends too much money. When I ask Sean to cook, he starts by buying French-made cultured butter and fresh lobster. Even when I ask for a simple beef stew, he naturally opts for the highest grade beef. When I think a single dish costs $50, it tastes like tears.
Is it so delicious you're crying? I must really have a talent for cooking,
Sean said cheerfully, oblivious. It's not just the ingredients that are the problem. He has over 20 guitars in his collection. And he buys entire novels or comic series on a whim if he's slightly interested. Not to mention the model kits, figures, and cute stuffed animals crowding the space. The mountain bike he bought on impulse has never touched the ground and has become purely decorative. Sean's collection has started to invade the living room, not just his own space. In our overly spacious apartment meant for families.
I'm buying within our budget, so it's fine,
Sean insists. No matter how many times I argue that he's overspending, it doesn't reach him. This $16,000 massage chair is the most extravagant purchase yet. I just wish he had consulted me first.
But, you know, Sophia, your shoulders are always stiff, right? I was worried about your body. I wanted to help you. I wanted you to be happy and to see you smile. That's why I thought the massage chair was necessary.
Sean took my hand and spoke earnestly. His actions were all out of love for me. The fancy meals were for my sake. He remembered me saying that's a cute picture while watching a cartoon and bought the comic book for me. Sean's spending habits made my stomach turn, but behind it all was kindness. That's why I couldn't push him away. Moreover, Sean's kindness wasn't just directed at me. He was actively involved in community service and coaching children's basketball. From kids to the elderly, everyone talks to him. He had a generous spirit loved by many.
Wow! Long time no see.
One day while shopping, we were approached from behind. Turning around, expecting another acquaintance of Sean's, I was surprised to see my sister, Lisa.
Wow, Sophia, you've aged,
she said with a sparkling smile, naturally insulting me. Lisa had gone to community college in New York and lived there after graduating. It seemed she was just visiting our hometown.
Hey, who's this handsome guy next to you?
She asked, moving closer to Sean before I could respond.
Hi, I'm Lisa, Sophia's sister. Nice to meet you. Oh, you're her sister? I'm Sean. Sophia and I are in a good relationship.
The closeness between Sean and Lisa didn't seem like they were just meeting for the first time. I tugged lightly on Sean's arm. She's my older sister, I muttered under my breath, and Lisa stuck out her tongue.
Come on, I look younger, right? Sophia, you're already 30, aren't you? Well, that's about right for your age. But I still look like I'm in my 20s, don't I?
Lisa always thought the world revolved around her. Despite our mother's repeated warnings not to belittle others, it never affected Lisa. With her slightly cute appearance, every bit of male attention boosted her self-esteem sky high. Her self-esteem tower must be piercing the clouds, reaching out to space. Lisa appraised Sean from head to toe, sizing him up. Lisa whispered to me secretly. Sean looks okay, I guess. Too good for Sophia.
But he seems boringly nice. Probably just another womanish guy. I hate those kinds of losers.
No way. After finishing, Lisa smiled sweetly.
Sean, you're handsome and seem so kind. Sophia is lucky to be with someone like you. Haha, thank you.
Sean replied, scratching his head bashfully, not realizing it was just flattery. Lisa, maintaining her polished smile, clung to my arm and leaned in again. Ew, gross. Your boyfriend is totally ogling me. It's so obvious, like a lovesick puppy. Even if you gave me $10,000, I couldn't stand being with a creep like him. Her sweet smile made the venom in her words even more confusing. If I showed anger and said, "Stop it," Lisa would play the victim, tears welling up in her eyes. Only I could hear Lisa's harsh words, so to outsiders, she just looked like a woman with a beautiful smile. Frustrating as it was, I had no choice but to remain expressionless. Lisa has always been the honest and adorable good girl. While I was like the extra sister, doted on by my wonderful older sibling. No one else knows Lisa's true face. Ignoring her malice has become second nature to me. I plastered a thin smile on my face and remained passive.
Lisa, you're so beautiful. I can hardly believe you're Sophia's sister.
Sean praised Lisa. I thought it would satisfy Lisa since she succeeded in drawing an adequate response. I was tired of pretending to be the loving sister she clung to. I thought I was free. But someone else called out to us.
Oh, it's the teacher.
A young girl ran toward us, waving her hands.
Teacher, thank you for fixing Mari's leg.
The girl's mother also smiled in gratitude to Sean.
We're really thankful for what you did. The teacher is amazing. He fixed Mari's leg so quickly. It's like you're a magician, teacher. Dad said you're what you call a lifesaver. Haha, you're such a young and talented doctor.
Sean's innate kindness has the power to bring smiles to many people. Though his kindness often overwhelms me, I realized again that he also brings relief to others.
Oh, I'm still learning,
Sean said modestly, and I found myself unable to dislike him. I watched his profile with a slight sense of happiness, only to be reminded of Lisa's presence as she gripped my arm tighter. Lisa, always wanting to be number one, seemed jealous of the praise Sean was receiving and glared at us with a tiger-like sharp gaze. It felt slightly relieving to show that Sean, who had been criticized just moments before, was actually a kind-hearted person. Since then, I haven't seen Lisa. She's probably living a glamorous and fun life in New York. Meanwhile, I'm carrying Sean's child, and our family is about to grow. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy definitely. I keep telling myself I will be happy, stroking my growing belly.
Well, I'm happy about the baby. But I'm not quite mentally prepared yet. Maybe once the baby is born and I see its face, I'll feel like a father. I just need you to wait until then,
Sean said, his eyes brimming with tears when I told him about the pregnancy. Yet, he seemed unable to fully commit. Fiancé sounds good, but our relationship is hanging in the balance. Of course, I cried, got angry, and pressed for marriage.
I'm sorry. But please trust me, it'll be okay,
Sean said, looking down guiltily. So, I repeat like a mantra, I will be happy, every day. I plan to rely on my parents' help after giving birth, as they live in the same city. But as the pregnancy advanced, I decided to return to my parents' home early. With about 3 months until the birth. Staying with Sean would be too painful for me. At my parents' house, I enjoyed peaceful times, cooking elaborate meals with my mother and strolling through shopping malls. I was glad to have left our shared home with Sean early. But this peace was abruptly shattered. I'm pregnant with Sean's baby, Lisa blurted out over the phone, without any greetings.
What? I said, I'm pregnant with Sean's baby.
Lisa sounded too cheerful, so I inadvertently responded, oh, congratulations.
Congratulations? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's Sean's baby, which means the father of the child in your belly and mine is the same. Can you grasp that?
Lisa laughed merrily as usual.
Sisters having babies by the same man, we really are close, aren't we? But sadly, our children won't be able to get along. Because, you see, my child will be happy, but Sophia's child is doomed to be unhappy.
Lisa, with eyes of an angel but the essence of a devil, could spout such heartless words so cheerfully.
Well, can't help it. Sean chose me after all. It's all Sophia's fault for not treasuring Sean, right? Complaining about a man who can do anything? Unbelievable. You really got what you deserved. Oh, and it looks like your bad luck is sealed now.
From the other end of the phone, I could hear the hum of machinery. It seems Lisa is lounging on my massage chair at home. Ah, this feels good. I heard Lisa's voice drift through, relishing her victory while being pampered by the $16,000 luxury massage chair.
Hey, are you listening? I'm not so free to enjoy chatting with you. I'll say it just one more time, so listen up. I'm pregnant with Sean's baby.
You stay away. Being verbally assaulted so directly was almost refreshing.
Is that okay? Thank you.
I no longer need a life where I feel crushed by the heavy pressure of that massage chair.
What? Have you lost your mind? Sean is mine, you know? Yes, take him. Please do.
Declaring my willingness to let go, the confident Lisa pressed for confirmation.
You know you won't get to eat Sean's cooking anymore, right? No, I won't. And the massage chair is mine, okay? Yeah, I don't need it.
When I was with Sean, I couldn't stop wanting to hold his dear hand forever. But what if I bravely let go? Now, my heart has grown so cold I can't even remember Sean's warmth.
You won't rely on kind Sean anymore, right?
Kind, yes, he's kind.
Don't mooch off him just because he's a doctor, okay? The doctor, yes, he's got the magic touch.
My flat, unemotional responses seemed to convince Lisa that I was completely broken. Haha, pathetic.
You'd look a bit more endearing if you cried and screamed. But pretending to be strong just makes you look more miserable. You'll probably be alone forever.
Lisa hurled those words at me like a curse.
Well, then, I'll be happy with the rich and kind doctor, Sean. Sophia, you just bite your lip and bless us.
Little does she know, it's Lisa who'll end up biting her lip, but I could tell her that now. But I deliberately kept my mouth shut. There's no need to rain on Lisa's parade when she seems happy. After all, she'll self-destruct eventually. Just as I thought, Lisa's downfall came swiftly. Only a week after her declaration of war, an enraged Lisa stormed into my parents' home. Sean, dragged along by the scruff of his neck, was smiling awkwardly.
What do you mean we have to move out of the house?
Exactly what I said.
I don't understand. Sean said we were moving, so I thought we were upgrading to a bigger house. But a one-bedroom apartment? What's that about? I really don't get it.
Behind the yelling Lisa, Sean was grinning. It's not that he finds our conflict amusing. As a naturally nice person who dislikes disputes, he seemed to be conveying a message to avoid quarreling.
Let me explain so you can understand. The apartment Sean and Lisa are living in is under my lease. Since I'm not living there anymore, it's only natural to terminate the lease, right?
Lisa puffed up her cheeks and glared at Sean.
That's why we need to move. Sorry for the inconvenience, Lisa.
Sean apologized with a humble attitude. Lisa looked down on him with a frown.
I don't mind continuing to live in the house Sophia shared with you. Moving is a hassle, so let's just stay here. We just need to change the leaseholder.
Sean could only offer a troubled smile and a tilt of his head. So, I had to spell out the reality for her.
You can't stay there. Why not? It's none of your business anymore if you're not living there. We'll just change the leaseholder. It would be fine if the leaseholder change goes smoothly. But if you have to go through a new tenant screening, it might be tough.
Why? The reason is simple. Because Sean's income is too low. Lisa froze, unable to comprehend the straightforward meaning. The more she thought about it, the more confused she seemed to become.
I may not have a high income, but I earn enough to rent a spacious apartment suitable for a family. Plus, the housing allowance from my company is quite generous.
It's an era where women can excel in society too. I wasn't just fooling around until I turned 30, I've been working seriously. Lisa has probably lived a carefree life. Depending on men and managing to live without hardships.
Yeah, amazing. You've been all work and no play, ready for a life of singlehood. And now, dumped by Sean, how pitiful. You'll have to work like an ant for the rest of your life since you can't be supported.
If you plan to marry Sean, you'll have to work too. I hit the ever-confident Lisa with the undeniable truth. Like I said earlier, Sean doesn't earn enough to support Lisa.
What? That's rude. How expensive do you think I am? A doctor is a perfect match for me as a marriage partner.
Lisa, aren't you mistaken? Sean isn't just any doctor. I paused before continuing. Sean is a doll doctor. Lisa's brow furrowed in confusion, while Sean seemed a bit bashful. Maybe he's proud of his work. You know that Sean collects figures and stuffed animals, right? Sean is great at fixing broken toys with his skillful hands. He's quick and meticulous, leaving no trace of the repair. I truly think he's an excellent doll doctor. When I genuinely praised him, Sean looked bashfully pleased. There's no one as kind-hearted as Sean. He's dedicated to volunteering as a doctor repairing someone's cherished toys. Lisa's mouth gaped open, resembling a broken doll. A doll doctor. Yes, that kind of volunteer work. Volunteer. While Sean is a god hand with dolls, unfortunately, he can't fix a nearly broken Lisa.
If Lisa has any cherished toys she wants fixed, she can count on me.
Sean offered kindly, making Lisa's eyes widen. Her face filled with loathing, and her temples throbbed visibly. It seems Sean only made Lisa more broken. What is your job, exactly? Lisa asked tentatively.
I'm currently working at a logistics warehouse, sorting items. Since there are more women and fewer men, I'm valued for handling the heavy lifting. Oh, and don't worry, there's no risk of me having an affair.
Lisa's face turned pale.
Oh, I get it. You're the, president of the logistics warehouse, right?
No way. I'm just a part-timer. Lisa's slight hope was instantly shattered. She asked, twitching around her nose.
Seriously, a part-timer? Embarrassingly so. And you were spending money on gourmet ingredients and gifts even though you're just a part-timer? It's okay. It's within the income range.
Lisa became even more confused. Since Sean was at a loss for words, I added.
It's not Sean's income. It's mine. Within my income range, right?
When living together, it's natural for both partners to contribute to the expenses. I don't mind Sean using my money as long as it's within the budget. However, despite Sean's claims, we were actually running a deficit every month. Because he never really cared about rent or utility bills. Sean looked at me guiltily.
Oh. Sophia, I'm sorry. Even with you here, I got Lisa pregnant too. But I'll take responsibility. I'll cherish both you and Lisa.
Sean seemed oblivious to the fact that he was acting like the king of scoundrels. Polygamy isn't allowed in America. Moreover, I'm not his wallet.
By making a move on your sister, you've already shown you don't value me. Even if Lisa initiated it, you're the worst for giving in so easily. I don't want such a man to be the father of my child. But I really do love you, Sophia. I'm ready to commit and marry you. I don't want to lose you. Despite everything, you respected my work. You're the only kind woman who has ever truly acknowledged me.
I also feel guilty. Being with Sean, someone out of my league, felt like a miracle, and I turned a blind eye to many things. Before I knew it, I was always compromising. Not valuing myself enough.
What about me? I won't allow you to marry Sophia. If you're going to marry someone, it should be me.
Lisa was being stubborn. Sean indeed seems like a good man on the surface, and she probably doesn't want to lose to me.
I'm breaking up with Sean, so you two can do as you please.
See? What's so good about a woman who confesses like that? Choose me. Right? Pressured by Lisa, Sean took a step back. With a bit of fear, Sean's hand was firmly grasped by Lisa.
It's decided then. Sean is all mine.
A triumphant Lisa turned a pitying gaze toward me.
Sophia, who has worked hard, can continue to live on her own from now on. So, leave this house. You can manage without relying on your parents, right? I'm going back to this family home with Sean.
A perfect judgment. Lisa plans to have Sean, a kind and talented man, as her husband, and rely on her parents for the financial support he lacks. It's just like Lisa to avoid effort and depend on others. I chuckled softly.
When you're hot-headed, your perspective narrows. Take a deep breath and look around.
This is the living room of our family home. Lisa, with her breath ragged, looked around with bloodshot eyes.
What?
Finally, she realized it.
What? Why is there nothing in the room? Where's the TV? The table?
Then, my mother arrived. Sophia, it's time to leave.
All right.
My mother glanced at the flustered Lisa.
Oh, Lisa, you're here. Mom, I'm getting married and coming back to this house.
Sensing something was off, Lisa threw herself into our mother's arms. But my mother gently pushed her away.
Lisa, there's no home for you to return to. What? We sold the house. Your parents are moving somewhere you don't know.
When Lisa took Sean away from me, no one was more upset than my parents. They've always been concerned and reprimanded Lisa, who has been arrogant since childhood. But my parents aren't saintly enough to gently advise Lisa, who trampled on me. Knowing Sean's unreliability, they quickly wrote him off, saying, "Give that man to Lisa."
Are you abandoning me?
Yes, because we can't forgive what you did to Sophia.
That's awful. How can you still be parents?
We are parents, and that's why we protect Sophia.
Being parents doesn't mean we have to accept everything about Lisa.
Lisa, always pampered by men, must feel humiliated to be rejected by someone, especially by parents whom she trusts implicitly. The despair of being abandoned by them must be immeasurable.
Let's go, Sophia.
Okay. My mother gently patted my back, which now bore a large belly. What should I do? Lisa's voice trembled with tears. I glanced at the dazed Sean and responded lightly.
Why don't you find happiness with Sean?
Sean, seeing Lisa crying, hesitated to comfort her and stopped midway. Eventually, Lisa broke down, shedding tears and collapsing on the spot. Just in case, I didn't cut off all contact with Lisa. Initially, her messages were full of complaints, but after a month, they turned condescending. Sean got employed at a top-notch restaurant in a luxury hotel. Isn't that amazing? She boasted. Neither my parents nor I wish for Lisa's misery. It's relieving to know she's getting by somehow. However, Sean soon quit the job.
I got scolded for adding a secret ingredient. They don't appreciate that my recipe is superior to the one they provided.
Sean seemed to say something like that. Lisa, supporting Sean, ridiculed the restaurant as a third-rate place that only charges high prices without delivering quality. Sean is talented, so he found another job quickly. But again, his insistence on doing things his way didn't work out. Lisa, unable to give up, keeps changing his jobs, but it's unlikely he'll last long anywhere.
Sean is so amazing. Why does he fail? He finds jobs quickly. What's wrong?
Even when living with me, Sean was particular and hated having his opinions or pace disturbed. He appears kind but never bends his beliefs. That's why he can't work using his hobbies or talents. Seemingly finding mundane warehouse work more suitable. Will Lisa ever escape that one-bedroom apartment? It seems she was quickly evicted from there.
I want to start over with Sophia.
Sean unexpectedly called to say.
Lisa cheated on me. I was working hard for Lisa and our expected child, and then this. And guess what? She cheated because she needed to be pregnant soon.
I was puzzled.
Lisa wasn't even pregnant with my child. She lied to separate me and Sophia. How terrible is that?
Sean ranted excitedly over the phone. It's so intense over the phone that it feels like spit is flying through it, which is disgusting.
I was faithful, working seriously and protecting our unborn child when you cheated. Isn't that terrible? Well,
he has no right to blame Lisa after his own infidelity.
Did you feel the pain of being cheated on? Do you understand how I felt?
Sorry. I don't need your apologies. But it's good timing. I was about to contact you.
Really?
Sean's voice perked up. The baby was born.
Wow, really? It's a boy, right? Does he look like me? I'll bring my ball right now. I want him to get familiar with the ball from an early age.
He's inherently kind. If he had married me with a sense of fatherhood when I got pregnant, our future might have been completely different. But I don't want to reclaim that future.
Don't misunderstand. I just wanted to tell you your baby was born, so you need to pay child support.
The joy-filled voice on the other end of the phone went silent.
I want to raise our child together.
Impossible.
I'm already overwhelmed with caring for my own child. I can't accommodate your whims. Am I being whimsical? I did everything to make you happy, Sophia.
Indeed, Sean was kind.
You just love being seen as the kind person who helps others. Your unsolicited kindness is a nuisance.
It seemed like 100% goodwill, but it was painful when he wouldn't listen to my opinion. Afterward, Lisa tried to lean on other men but couldn't find satisfaction after being with high-caliber Sean. She went back to a demoralized Sean. And with Lisa's encouragement, Sean opened his own restaurant. It was all done his way, which wasn't without problems. The restaurant, with its extravagant prices, and Lisa's cheap nightclub-like service, confused its target customers. The restaurant closed within a few months. All that was left was a significant debt. Strong-willed Lisa got into loud arguments with Sean, loud enough to be heard outside the apartment. Consequently, Sean's good reputation crumbled, and even in his volunteer work, people kept their distance. Meanwhile, Lisa, frustrated by the lack of money, hasn't realized that Sean has been diligently paying child support. How ironic. On the other hand, I'm living in a new home with my parents. The money from selling our family home allowed my dad to buy a small bungalow. I'm currently on maternity leave, enjoying leisurely days with my baby. I've stopped praying to be happy. My little child falls asleep peacefully in my arms. Could there be any greater happiness in this world? I just hope for more uneventful, peaceful days to come.
Just as planned, the inheritance will be mine. I heard my husband's voice just before losing consciousness. After finishing my doctor's appointment and while heading home, a car suddenly drove towards me. When I realized, it was too close and I couldn't escape being hit. Amidst the severe pain and fading consciousness, I heard my husband's earlier words. What did he mean by inheritance? Why was my husband even there? I tried to make sense of it but lost consciousness without seeing him again. 3 days later, when I woke up, I saw on TV my husband pretending to be the grieving, good husband involved in his wife's accident, and my anger exploded. He orchestrated everything and yet he's garnering sympathy, pretending to be a good person. I couldn't forgive that. I decided I couldn't let him have his way anymore and resolved to take revenge. My name is Mary Turner, 29 years old. I'm a music teacher. I've always loved playing the piano and dreamed of becoming a pianist since I was young. Despite practicing desperately every day and somehow making it to music college, I was overwhelmed by the high level of competition and eventually gave up, becoming a music teacher instead. I'm currently working in a local public middle school in Nebraska, not just teaching but also advising the choir, keeping my days busy. Being a teacher is demanding but rewarding, as the kids look up to me, calling me teacher and making my days fulfilling. Last year, I married Ken, my college sweetheart, and was at the peak of my happiness both personally and professionally. However, that didn't last long. Ken was simply irresponsible. Working at a bar, his work hours were irregular due to serving alcohol, with late starts and ends to his shifts. Our routines clashed, leading us to grow apart. He would often come home drunk in the early hours, and I'd find him passed out at the entrance. Initially, I understood it was part of his job. But coming home tired to find clothes strewn about, and the table cluttered with scattered fast food wrappings and finished Coke bottles, my irritation grew. Ken, put your clothes in the washer. And can't you clean up your own mess? What? Chill out, I'll do it later. You always say later and never do it. Do it now. He would frown and click his tongue in response. If you're so bothered by it, why don't you do it yourself? Such a nagging woman. What? I'm exhausted from work every day. Why should I have to take care of Ken too? Can't you take care of yourself for once? I'm tired too, you know. Do you think you're the only one who's tired? Or do you think you're better because you earn more? When I denied it, Ken sighed. Then Mary should do it. Don't be so bossy. Saying that, Ken lazily flopped down on the couch and started fiddling with his smartphone. Despite having shorter working hours than me, he never helps with the housework and just goes out drinking at his leisure, only to come home and sleep. In the end, I end up doing all the cleaning and laundry. Lately, we haven't even gone out on dates, and we just argue more and more. Ken is very handsome, and during college, he was so popular that he had fans from neighboring colleges. I felt superior just for being able to marry him. During our dating period, I was head over heels for the gentlemanly Ken, but now I don't even know why I married him. But people have their good points and bad points. I thought it was okay if his personality was a bit difficult since he was good looking, so I decided to endure it. Half a year after we got married. Ken usually goes out even on his days off, was acting restless one morning. Then, as I finished cleaning up after breakfast, Ken called out to me. The truth is, the bar's been doing poorly lately, and I'm short on cash. Can you lend me some? What? Are you out of money? What did you spend it on? He had been saying that his salary was reduced for a few months now, so he couldn't pay for living expenses. Since his salary should be all his to spend, I couldn't believe he was still short on money. You know, I go out drinking for social reasons, right? Alcohol costs money. If it's really for the bar, you should get expenses covered. It's strange to pay out of your own pocket. Well, it's not exactly that. I mean, I think I need to know about other bars' menus and such for research. Ken, stammering, seemed suspicious. How much do you need? You'll give it to me? $400. $400 will do. When I sighed, Ken happily hugged me. I'm disgusted by his smooth-talking ways, but I always get wrapped up in his charm. When I took out $400 from my wallet and handed it to him, Ken hugged me again. I'm so glad I married Mary. Thank you so much. Even though I was fed up with Ken, we had been arguing a lot lately, so I was thrilled to be hugged. And I felt I had to support Ken, who was struggling with his job. But then, Ken started asking for money every month. The amount he wanted kept increasing, and before I knew it, I was giving him $2,000 a month as an allowance. For me, just a teacher, it was quite tough to pay an extra $2,000 a month on top of living expenses. Despite my efforts to save, my money kept dwindling, and my savings were nearly gone. Ken, can you return some of the money I gave you, even just a little? What? Why all of a sudden? The money was a gift, wasn't it? Why should I have to return it? We're struggling to make ends meet. If I keep giving you money, we won't even be able to pay for gas or water. When I approached Ken before he went to work, he frowned as if annoyed. I can't help it, my salary is too low. You could if you tried saving a bit, like cutting back on eating out. But I do that for the bar. Are you trying to interfere with my job? Then you should just sell your piano. He said it would fetch a good price and left the house. My piano is as precious to me as life itself. It was bought by my father when I was 2 years old. As a music teacher, I need to practice, and there's no way I can part with it. Yet Ken, who goes out drinking nonchalantly, said such cold things, and I was filled with anger. After that, I stopped talking to Ken. He didn't try to speak to me either, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say our marriage was falling apart. Just when I was contemplating divorce, an incident occurred. I felt a sharp pain in my wrist while playing the piano. The pain from my wrist to my fingertips grew intense, becoming unbearable. When I went to the doctor, I was diagnosed with tendinitis. You might need surgery if it gets worse, so you should probably get it checked at a larger hospital. I was told this at the local clinic and got a referral letter. Then, I headed to the general hospital in the next city.
If my wrist pain got any worse, I wouldn't be able to play the piano anymore. And if I can't play the piano, I'd likely lose my job. I didn't know what I would do about my future if that happened. I've only ever played the piano and haven't done any other job, so finding a new job would be difficult. I was anxious before the examination, feeling heavy-hearted. But the doctor, after looking at the x-rays, smiled and said it was okay.
Let's just observe for now. If possible, please rest your hand. Try not to play the piano for about a week, and if the pain intensifies, come back for another visit.
I was relieved to hear it wasn't severe enough for surgery. And just as I was about to leave the hospital, feeling uplifted, it happened the moment I stepped out of the parking lot.
Watch out!
I heard a woman scream, and when I turned around in shock, a car was speeding towards me. I thought I needed to run, but my body wouldn't move properly. Then, an immense shock went through my body.
It's an accident! Call an ambulance! Get a doctor!
I heard various people shouting. And amid my fading consciousness, a familiar voice reached my ears.
This is going according to plan. The inheritance will be ours now.
Among other voices, I distinctly recognized one I knew well. But I lost consciousness before I could see who it was. 3 days later. When I woke up, the ceiling of the hospital was the first thing I saw. Trying to sit up sent intense pain through my body.
Ouch! Miss Turner? Miss Turner, can you hear me? I'll go get the doctor right away. Please wait here.
I couldn't even respond to the nurse's voice. The nurse hurried out of the room, and then a doctor came running in.
Miss Turner, do you know where you are?
The hospital?
That's right. After your last visit, you were hit by a car and have been hospitalized. You haven't woken up for 3 days, so we were worried about you.
I was shocked to hear it had been 3 days, but I couldn't manage to voice my surprise. Then, the nurse and doctor explained the situation to me. I had been hit by a car and suffered multiple fractures throughout my body. I was still in a period where absolute rest was necessary, and I wasn't allowed to get up. You must be bored just lying there. Would you like to watch TV? You can watch it while lying down. The nurse turned on the TV for me so I wouldn't be inconvenienced. At that moment, the news happened to be covering my accident.
You probably don't want to watch this, do you? Should I change the channel? No, please let me watch.
I couldn't take my eyes off the news. The TV reported a woman who had hit me was arrested for vehicular manslaughter. Seeing the perpetrator's photo, I understood everything. And I was certain that the voice saying we would get the inheritance when I was hit was Ken's. Ken had intentionally hit me with the car for money. However, the news reported that Ken was also in the car but only mentioned that they were just friends. Then the screen switched to Ken.
I never imagined the car I was in would cause an accident and hit my wife. I can't sleep because I keep seeing that scene in my dreams.
I exploded with anger seeing Ken tearfully speaking in the interview. There was no doubt in my mind that Ken had orchestrated this accident. He had deliberately put me in harm's way for the inheritance and continued to pretend to be a good husband. I couldn't let him have his way anymore and vowed to seek revenge. 4 hours after I woke up, Ken burst into the room, out of breath.
Mary! Thank goodness, you're awake!
I shook off Ken's hand as he tried to hold mine uninvited.
What's wrong? Are you still in pain?
Yes, I am. My whole body is in severe pain, and it feels like I'm losing my mind. It's all because of you.
What are you talking about?
The atmosphere was tense, and even the nearby nurse's expression stiffened. Trying to lighten the mood, Ken cracked a wry smile. Are you still confused? Do you want something to eat? I can go buy it.
I don't want anything. Could you please leave the room now?
Why are you saying that? Mary, something's off with you.
I'm not off. The accident was orchestrated by you for the inheritance, wasn't it?
Ken gasped at my accusation.
What are you saying? There's no way I would do something like that.
Really?
Then why did you take out a large life insurance policy a month before the accident? It's strange for someone who said they couldn't afford living expenses because they were broke to be paying for insurance.
Well, I was advised it's better to have insurance in case something happens. The person who hit you, she's in insurance sales. She used to work part-time at our place. Ken had given the same explanation when he took out the insurance. They had been close since she worked part-time. And even after she got a job at the insurance company, they kept in touch. She had approached him because no one was signing up, and she was in trouble with her boss, so Ken felt sorry and decided to help by signing up.
You know, I make less than you, Mary. So I thought it would be a problem if you couldn't work because of an accident or illness. That's why I only got insurance for you. It's not that strange, is it?
His words seemed reasonable, but it didn't sit right with me.
You can't even pay your own living expenses, but you can afford insurance premiums? If you have that much money, why don't you pay me back instead? Don't say that. I got the insurance for you,
Ken said, holding my hand. His expression seemed genuinely concerned, but I couldn't trust him.
If that's the case, you won't mind if the insurance money coming through won't be yours, right? The surgery and hospitalization are going to cost a lot. I'll use the insurance money I got to pay for it, so could you transfer the entire amount to my account? What? All of it? Is that much really necessary?
It might be. And if it's not enough, will you pay the difference, Ken?
What? Not enough? You've got to be kidding.
Ken's face tensed up as he muttered under his breath. And the nurses shot him suspicious glances. I beckoned Ken closer with a gesture.
All your lies are in vain. The insurance payout isn't much since I'm alive, and the inheritance is 0. Tough luck, huh?
I whispered so only Ken could hear, and he twitched his eyebrows in response.
What do you mean 0 inheritance? It means there's almost no savings. Did you think you'd get all my money if I was gone? Why isn't there any? You're a public servant, you make good money, right?
Ken's voice started to rise. The nurse overheard Ken's words and frowned.
It's because I lent you money, Ken. How much do you think a teacher makes? I'm still in my 20s, I don't earn that much. There are living expenses to pay, and I didn't have any extra money.
That's a lie. Then why did I even? Ken bowed his head, overwhelmed. My anger surged at his true colors.
You won't get away with this. If it's found out you're an accomplice, you'll be arrested too.
That's impossible.
Did you see the news? I'm the devoted husband worried about his wife. No one will believe any absurd story you tell.
Ken laughed, suggesting people would think I'd lost my mind from the head injury.
You can say that now,
I replied calmly to Ken's taunts. Suddenly, Ken's expression hardened and he glared at me.
Don't get ahead of yourself. You should have just gone to the other world.
I despised Ken for saying such a thing so casually. And with a sigh, she awaited the beginning of her revenge. As I sighed, a man in a suit burst into the room. Who are you guys? We're the police. Is what you just said true?
Huh? What do you mean? I'm just concerned for my wife.
Ignoring Ken's panic, the police officer reached for my bedside. He pulled out a smartphone. That was on a call. We heard everything,
including the part where you said she should have gone to the other world. Why are the police?
Ken's face turned pale and he began to tremble.
I was the one who called them. I asked for their help to uncover the truth about the accident. Thanks to you, I was able to convey your true character. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. I just lost my temper because I thought Mary was picking a fight, not because I'm after the money.
Nobody believes that.
Then show evidence that I'm the perpetrator.
I glared at Ken, who kicked the bed in frustration, then looked at the police.
The person currently arrested is Ken's mistress. They've been close for quite some time.
What?
Don't make stuff up without evidence. There is evidence. I had hired a detective agency to investigate Ken because he kept asking for money. They found photos of him with her and tracked his activities over the past few months. No use lying.
I had started the investigation suspecting Ken might be in debt. But it turned out he was cheating and spending money on drinking in hotels. I recognized her face from the news, which confirmed my suspicions about Ken's involvement in the accident. The police were making a call to search my house. While listening, Ken looked around nervously, sweating.
You planned to stage an accident to get the inheritance and insurance money to live with her, didn't you? That's just your delusion. Then the insurance money is mine. Withdraw it and bring it to me now.
Ken fell silent and looked down. Even in this situation, he didn't say he would give me the insurance money, raising everyone's suspicion.
The police mentioned they were concerned about how much Ken seemed to care for the other woman. That's my friend, of course, I'm worried. You're not angry with her even though your wife is in this condition. And it's strange you were at the hospital that day, at that time.
It was a weekday morning when I went to the hospital. I finished my appointment around noon, and Ken should have been getting ready for work. Yet, he was inexplicably in front of the hospital in the next city.
It was my day off. On your day off, you were at the hospital? There's nothing around there for you, no shops you'd visit, and you're not a patient there. There must be a reason you were there.
Ken couldn't answer and continued to sweat profusely. Then, the police put their hand on Ken's shoulder.
I'll need to ask you more about this at the station. Please come with us. No! Wait, please! I'm not guilty. It's all true. It's all just a misunderstanding by Mary.
Despite his desperate pleas, the police officer's expression remained stern and serious. Officer, what kind of punishment could Ken face if he planned this accident intentionally? Well, if it was premeditated, he could be charged with attempted murder. But we'll need to hear more to determine that.
Attempted murder? Help me! Mary, I'm not guilty! Forgive me!
Ken's face turned pale as he struggled against the police officer's grip and clung to my bed.
I admit I was wrong before. I cheated, I borrowed money, it was all my fault. But please forgive me. This time, I was just in the car, I'm not to blame. Before I lost consciousness, I heard your voice, Ken. You said we would get the inheritance as planned. How can I forgive someone who does such things for money?
As I raised my voice, Ken started making unbelievable claims.
Are you sure about this? If I get arrested, it will also reflect poorly on you. It could cause you trouble at work. It's in your best interest to take care of this. Why should I suffer because of your actions? Do you even realize what you've done? I plan to divorce you, and whether you're arrested or not is irrelevant to me.
I sighed in disgust at Ken's astonished expression.
Wait! What are you talking about divorce at a time like this? How am I supposed to live without you, Mary?
I didn't hold back.
I don't care. Even if this incident hadn't happened, I was planning to divorce you. I have evidence of your affairs, and I'll be seeking a substantial amount in alimony. Alimony? I can't pay for that. I'll lose my job if I get arrested. That's your problem. You committed a crime, it's only right you face the consequences. You shouldn't have done this if you didn't want to deal with them.
As I spoke, Ken collapsed to his knees.
I was deceived. They said if I wanted money, I should get insurance and stage an accident. It was supposed to be me driving, but since my license was suspended, she said she would drive.
Ken screamed, trying to shift the blame to the woman. Even now, trying to lessen his punishment, Ken's lack of remorse infuriated me.
Being deceived or whatever doesn't matter. I'll never forget you saying I should go to the other world. I won't forget those words for the rest of my life. That was just a slip of the tongue. Not what I really meant. I can't believe any word you say anymore. I don't want anything to do with you, and I'll be consulting a lawyer about the divorce. Don't ever contact me again. No! Stop! I'm not guilty! Let me go!
Ken started to thrash about, but was warned that he'd be charged with obstructing justice if he continued. Reluctantly, he left the room with the police. The next day, I learned from the news that Ken had been arrested. The man once seen as a grieving, caring husband was now exposed as a villain who plotted murder for insurance money. Over a decade has passed since I heard that Ken was released from prison. He lost his job and has been struggling to find new employment because his criminal record is turning potential employers away. Now, he's working at a convenience store. I saw on social media that he's having a tough time with the many things he has to remember and gets scolded daily. Ken's story was covered by national news, so many people recognized him. Apparently, some even take photos of him without his consent, making him feel even more isolated. The photos show him looking thin and unkempt, a far cry from the handsome guy he was celebrated as during his college days. It's sad to see how much he has changed, but I can never forgive him. I hope he spends his life reflecting on his actions. As for me, I left the school I was working at and moved out of state. Now, I'm teaching piano again. Miraculously, my hands recovered after the accident, allowing me to play piano. I'm now married to a different man, and we have 2 daughters, living happily as a family of 4. When I married Ken, I was swayed by his looks. This experience taught me the valuable lesson that one should never judge a person by their appearance alone. My current husband may not be conventionally handsome, but he is kind, honest, and straightforward. I've vowed to myself to always look beyond appearances and understand a person's true nature. My name is Mia. I've been married for 5 years, living with my mother-in-law in a 3-person household. My husband's family isn't an old or prestigious one. If you ask me, it's just that the house is old. However, according to my mother-in-law, we have been a traditional family. It seems she desperately wanted someone to carry on the family line. Yet, after 5 years, we've been unable to have children. As a result, I feel less than a maid, treated like a slave. One day, my mother-in-law, husband, and a pregnant woman stood before me and said, "Divorce him because his mistress is pregnant." Huh? Oh, you didn't hear? His mistress is pregnant. So, you're out. Go back to your parents' house. A woman like you who can't have kids is useless to us. How pitiful. A woman who can't have children is just pathetic. The woman said with a triumphant laugh, looking down on me. I pinched my leg, wondering if this was a dream. Feeling the pain, I realized it wasn't. Indeed, my husband had been unfaithful multiple times before. He thinks I don't know, but I'm aware of everything. But making a fuss would only get me yelled at by my mother-in-law. Being cheated on means there's something wrong with you, the wife. After all, men cheat because they're unsatisfied. A wife should just endure without complaining. When I was cheated on early in our marriage and my mother-in-law said that, I cursed my fate for marrying into this family. However, my husband's affairs would settle down, then start up again, in a strange cycle. Thanks to that, I concluded it's better to ignore him, and I've been killing my heart ever since. So, I thought this time would eventually end too. But then, this happened. Once you're out, Anna will move into this house. Just leave quickly. She's going to bear my child, a proper wife. You have no right to complain. That's so sad to say. She wanted to get pregnant but couldn't. You said kindly. But this woman is hopeless. She doesn't even want to have kids. What do you mean she doesn't want to? She refuses to be intimate. We haven't been a couple since the first year of our marriage. That's a lie. I wanted children, but couldn't have any. Especially since my mother-in-law's room is next to our bedroom. Any slight movement, and I'd hear her coughing. Even if we thought she was asleep and tried to start, somehow she'd know and stand by the bedroom door, listening. How could we do anything under those circumstances? So, I suggested to my husband that we go to a hotel to try and conceive. But he said, why should a married couple have to go to a hotel? Isn't it a waste of money? Besides, I don't feel like it with you at a hotel. That's been the situation for 5 years. Still, there were nights I endured, feeling my mother-in-law's presence, as my husband approached me when he felt like it. But no matter how much I endured, I never got pregnant. Those months, I'd be verbally abused by my husband.
What's the use? I gave you my seed, but you can't get pregnant. Another miss this month means your body's worthless.
But it's unreasonable to expect pregnancy after just one try.
Some women get pregnant right away. It's your barren field that's the problem. Make sure you tend to it properly.
How am I supposed to tend to it? I understand tilling soil, but tilling a womb. Yet, that's what he'd shout at me. Furthermore, when my husband reported another failure to my mother-in-law, she'd say, "You can't even cook properly, you leave dust even after cleaning, and on top of that, you can't produce children. Marrying you was a real mistake." The two of them would scold me together. And it's been 5 years. Now, their words no longer hurt me. No matter what they say, it's no longer a significant wound. Maybe it's because I've emptied my heart. I used to blame myself, but it's clear the situation isn't my fault. There's no need to be mentally distressed. Maybe I've come to realize that. One time, my husband told me something.
"You know, I just don't see you as my wife anymore. It's like you can't do what I want when I want. You're more like a maid than a wife. So, why do we even need to sleep in the same room? Maybe you should just sleep in a corner of the kitchen or something."
When my mother-in-law heard this, she laughed out loud, agreeing wholeheartedly. That might have been the moment when hatred started to sprout in my empty heart.
You must be infertile, I guess. Spending precious time as a couple with such a woman was truly a waste. But Anna got pregnant. Now our family's future is secure. Exactly, Joseph is definitely the heir of this household. I've been wondering what we were going to do, marrying such a woman. An heir must have children, you know. Hey, Mia. Hurry up and sign the divorce papers.
Thinking about how I've wasted my precious time on these people makes me feel so pathetic. It might have been a waste of time for you, but it was for me too. Especially considering we've been together for 5 years, you'd think our bond would have strengthened, but it's more like a rotten thread. If I sign these divorce papers, it'll all be over. But is that really okay? Would I have no regrets if it ended without me doing anything? Of course, the answer is no.
All right, I'll divorce you. But in return, you need to prepare $90,000 for alimony. What? $90,000?
Yes.
Considering everything that's happened, that's only fair. What kind of woman are you? Caring about money more than my son. Then, shall we not divorce? I don't mind either way. If you do that, you'll be nothing more than a maid for life. But then, that child won't be considered a part of this household, right? You're such a terrible wife until the end. Say whatever you want. I might have been hurt by your words before, but now I don't have a heart to hurt anymore. Fine. I'll prepare your $90,000. You're really an unpleasant woman. Likewise. The past 5 years with you have been nothing but uncomfortable. Oh, and one more thing. What now? Just write the divorce papers already. I'll do that after I receive the $90,000. Are you sure that child is yours? What do you mean by that? Well, you had mumps before we got married, right? I heard you had a high fever then. I overheard you and your mother discussing whether your seed was all right because of it. So, I wonder if you can even have children? That might be why we couldn't have any. That's ridiculous. The reason we couldn't have kids is that you're infertile. That's right. I did have a high fever, but there's no way that would affect my fertility. But your mother seemed quite worried about it, didn't she? It was supposed to be a secret from me. I couldn't believe that could be a reason for not having children either. But after doing some research, it turns out that high fevers can indeed lead to infertility. So, is that child really yours? It's my child, of course. Don't make baseless accusations. See. The child is conceived, isn't it? Sure, some men might become infertile from a high fever, but that doesn't mean Joseph is one of them. The fact that we couldn't have children is all your fault. There's no other explanation.
That's right.
Don't blame Yosef for your own failings. Now that Anna is pregnant, it's clear I can have children.
We'll see if that child is really yours if we check.
Stop scaring people with your nonsense. You're such an unpleasant woman. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just talking about a possibility. There's no such possibility.
That's right. There's no need to check.
I know best whether it's Yosef's child or not.
Generally, you can't really check if it's your child until after it's born, can you?
Actually, you can find out even now, using the mother's blood. You're just trying to make us unhappy. This child is the rightful heir of our family. If that's the case, then it's fine. I thought I'd tell you because it would be too late after the birth. How do you even know such things?
A woman's intuition.
Don't talk nonsense based on intuition. Oh, don't underestimate intuition. Every time Yosef cheated, I knew all about it. And who's to say that woman doesn't have other men? Don't say such rude things. I only love Yosef.
Right.
Anna loves only me. Well then, Anna loves only Yosef, but Yosef doesn't love only Anna, does he?
What? Don't be ridiculous.
Another woman? Yosef, do you have someone else besides me? Don't be ridiculous. You're the only one for me. This is all her fantasy, trying to split us up.
That's right.
There's no way Yosef would do such a thing. A man with a wife makes a mistress. And you think it stops at one? Stop it. Get out of here now. She's just jealous because the mistress got pregnant. You don't want to split, so you're trying to make us anxious with your words. You're not listening to advice, huh? Well, it's fine. We were married for 5 years, so I felt I had to warn you. But if you're not willing to listen, you'll see when the child is born. Don't talk nonsense without proof.
Proof, huh? Yes, indeed.
Without evidence, it's hard to establish the facts based solely on intuition. Anyway, be happy. Once you've transferred the $90,000, I'll sign the divorce papers.
After saying that, I packed my bags and left the house. However, I was certain of something inside me. It might have been just intuition, but that woman was quite the player, and it's doubtful the child is Yosef's. And maybe, the reason we never got pregnant was that he's infertile. All the oddities I've felt up to now are slowly taking shape inside me. Because I secretly underwent a fertility test without telling my husband. And it turned out I was perfectly healthy and capable of getting pregnant. So, the problem must be on the husband's side. Yet, how did the mistress get pregnant? Thinking about it made her claims seem dubious. Even if the child isn't Yosef's, it doesn't bother me. Even if the heir isn't of their bloodline, it's no issue to me. It's a big deal only for those two. What should I do? Just end everything with $90,000? Can I endure letting that family live happily without knowing anything? No, considering the humiliation of these 5 years, I don't want to endure. Those people deserve to fall into hell. That's when I thought of a certain revenge. About half a year later, I heard through the grapevine that the mistress had given birth. So, I decided to contact my husband.
Congratulations. I heard you had a son.
Hey, thanks.
And thanks for signing the divorce papers. You're welcome. The $90,000 was transferred, after all. That $90,000 hurt, but oh well.
It won't end with just $90,000.
How's the baby? Does he look like you? Of course, he's definitely my child. You said he wasn't mine, but he clearly is. My apologies then. I've sent a gift, make sure you receive it. Oh, really? That's too kind. Not at all. Bye now. After that, I hung up. Not at all too kind. After all, it's the greatest gift from me. A few days later, Yosef contacted me, wanting to meet. Just as I thought. Smirking to myself, I went to the cafe we agreed on. Yosef was there, looking grim over his coffee, waiting for me.
What's the meaning of this? He said, laying a large envelope on the table, marked with investigation report. Oh, you got my gift. So what is this about? It's exactly what it looks like. I hired a detective to check because you were so sure it's your child. I thought you should know the truth. Is it true she's been with other men? It's all in the report, so it must be true. There are even photos. The photos showed her leaving a hotel with another man. Among other compromising situations. Not just with one or two men. Amazing, right? Such is the woman you chose. Having relations with multiple men, even during and after her pregnancy, is something I couldn't even imagine. And currently ongoing. She was cheating? No surprise there. You did the same. Did you see this? What? Look, this man. Wow, his wife is a famous chef. Imagine the scandal if this gets out. The compensation could be huge. Since Anna is the one cheating, it's up to Anna to deal with it, right? That's true. But there's also this. I placed the other envelope, which I hadn't mailed, on the table. Inside was Yosef's investigation report. What's that? Isn't it the same thing? The envelope is. But the contents are completely different. Because, you see, it's your investigation report. What? During our marriage, you were involved with multiple women. I mean, I knew that. But the problem is, among those women, there were some who were married. You really played around without any discretion. And just like Anna, you're still involved with others. It's quite something that you managed to continue relationships with multiple women even after remarrying and having a child. Oh, I can't help it if I'm popular. Women around the world want me. That's ridiculous. The real issue is, despite being with all these women, none of them got pregnant. That's because I used protection. So, you didn't use protection with Anna? That's not true. I did. See? If you were using protection and none of the other women got pregnant, why did she? Was it a failure? No, that's not it. That's why I said it when we were divorcing. That she was cheating too. Well, it seems you don't care about that. Anyway, I've made copies of this investigation report and sent them to all your mistresses. Why would you do that? Because it's adultery during marriage. I have to claim what's due. There are 5 of them, so even at $54,000 each, that's $270,000. Plus the $90,000 you already gave me, I made a total of $360,000. How could you do this? I was the one whose family was destroyed. I didn't say anything back then because I was just enduring. So now, you'll be getting claims for damages too. Why? Because both you and Anna were involved with people who have spouses. Naturally, you'd be claimed against. You can't just have fun and not face the consequences. Especially since you were involved with your boss's wife. If the company finds out, I'm in big trouble. It's too late now. Because I've already sent it to your boss. You're lying. Truly. And about the child. You think it's yours, right? Even after seeing this report? That is. And about the contraception talk earlier. You still think it's yours after hearing that? You don't have any doubts? No, I can't say that. Right. Normally, you'd have doubts. It seems you're finally seeing reality. So, I think you should do a DNA test. DNA test? Yes, it's better to know for sure, right? Especially since your mother-in-law won't accept a child that's not of her bloodline. If the child turns out to be from your affair, it would be a big problem. Better to find out it's really your child, right? That makes sense, but what if it's not your child? Would you still raise it? Legally, it's your child, so there's no issue there, but I wonder what your mom would say. She wants an heir, right? An heir with your family's blood. My child is definitely mine. There's no need to check. If you think so, that's fine. Legally, it's your child, after all. What do you mean?
Even if genetically it's not your child, any child born during the marriage is legally yours. Meaning, you're obligated to support it. What? Even if it's not my child? Yes. The law isn't determined by blood. That's why I said you should have checked before the birth, but you and your mother were so sure, completely disregarding my warning. That's ridiculous. But if it turns out it's not my child?
Yosef turned pale, realizing the child might not be his, and was visibly anxious. I sipped my cold coffee and smiled subtly. It's up to Yosef to think, worry, and fall into his own hell. That's what I thought. So, my revenge would end here. But then, I got a call from him later.
What should I do?
Oh, what happened?
I'm getting claims for damages from everywhere. They're all through law offices, so there's no escaping.
Wow, that's tough.
It's all your fault. I'm taking a huge loss.
Oh, my fault? It seems like your precious son's fault to me.
My son?
Yes. It's your son down there, ready to mingle with any woman. The problem is caused by him, isn't it?
No, it's different. If you hadn't sent those investigation reports to everyone, this wouldn't have happened.
Well, I couldn't just let it go, could I? The 5 years I was married to you, I became stronger.
Damn, it's all your fault.
Then, shall we say this? Thanks to you, I've made a significant income. How about that?
How about that? Why are you the only one who's happy?
That's easy. Thanks to you being involved with 5 other women.
Why would you do such a thing?
An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Hey, for 5 years, I was your housekeeper, your slave. And all the blame was always put on me. Do you think a person can just take that humiliation and stay quiet? If there's a chance to fight back, of course, I will. It's only natural.
Why? Did I hurt you that much?
Yes, you did. Why can't you see that? It's strange that you don't understand.
Mom said it was natural for a woman who can't have children to be treated that way.
You and your mother are the strange ones.
I'm being sued for a lot of money by the husbands of my mistresses. And Anna is being sued for a high amount too. There's no way we can pay that.
Well, that's too bad.
And now, I'm on the verge of being fired because my boss found out.
That's what happens when you mess with your boss's wife. It's called karma.
It's your fault. If you hadn't spilled the beans to my boss too. If you hadn't sent those reports, my boss's family would have stayed intact.
I wonder about that. With such a wife, she's probably doing the same thing with another man. Eventually, their marriage would have crumbled anyway. Or maybe without breaking, her husband would have kept her under control. Either way, she wouldn't have had any freedom.
If only you had kept quiet, none of this would have happened.
By the way, did you do the paternity test?
Oh, yeah, the DNA test, right?
Yes, the DNA test. So, what were the results?
Yeah, it came out that it's not my child.
I thought so.
Mom knows about it and is telling me to divorce.
So, what are you going to do?
I can't go against my mom.
Just like that, you're going to divorce over this?
What choice do I have? Anna doesn't do anything around the house, doesn't cook. When something decent finally appears on the table, it's all store-bought dishes. Plus, she leaves the kid with my mother and goes out all the time. My mom has been taking care of the kid because she's the grandmother and she gave birth to me. She's been looking after him because he's the precious heir. But now that she knows she was deceived, she's had enough.
After all the talk of heirs and whatnot, I couldn't help but feel a sense of serves you right.
So, I've decided to divorce.
Did you talk it out properly?
Of course, we talked. I showed her the investigation report you sent and confronted her about cheating. Whose child is this, then? When I asked, it turned out she was going to make the real father take responsibility.
So, you have no idea who the other man is?
Apparently, she just pinned the kid on me because I wanted an heir.
Wow, impressive.
What's impressive about that? She cheated.
You're really good at ignoring your own faults.
Yeah, I thought I could get away with it. But then she had my investigation report. You didn't send it, did you?
Exactly. I did send it. It wouldn't be fair to give you all the cards and leave her with none. So, I made sure it was equal.
Thanks to you, we had a huge fight. You're cheating too, so why am I the only one getting blamed? This makes no sense, she said.
That's quite right.
In the end, after yelling and insulting each other, we decided to divorce.
I see. It's going to be tough from here on out.
No, I'll just find another woman. I'm popular, after all. It won't be hard. I'll plant my seed in a better woman.
You never learn.
What do you mean?
It's about the money, isn't it? That's what I'm talking about.
Money? I don't have any money problems.
Oh, why's that?
Because we both cheated. That means the cause of the divorce is on both of us. So, there won't be any claims for damages from either side.
It's not about damages.
What do you mean?
Child support.
Child support?
Who's going to raise the child? Well, since it's not my DNA, Anna will have to raise it. I don't want that kid. So that means you'll be paying child support. Why would that be? It's not my child. I told you. A child born during the marriage is legally considered yours. You have an obligation to support it.
That's if you're married, isn't it?
Being a parent doesn't change with divorce. You still have to pay for the child's upbringing.
That's ridiculous. It's not even my child.
Complain to the law, not me. I didn't make the rules.
It's Anna's child. And it's made from some unknown man's DNA. Why should I have to pay for it? That's so unfair.
If you think it's unfair, maybe you should become a congressman and change the law. That's how the law works right now. Complaining won't change anything.
That's ridiculous.
That's why I told you to check back then. I warned you. But you never listen, and now look at what happened. Serves you right.
You knew, didn't you?
Yes, I told you. I had a hunch. That Anna was seeing someone else. My intuition is sharp. So, I thought it wasn't your child. And I was right. I'm amazing.
If only you had told me more strongly.
You're the one who didn't listen to advice.
Oh, what a mess. How much do I have to pay? Is there no way to avoid this?
There is a way.
There is?
Yes, there's a way to avoid paying.
How?
That would be if you two raise the child together.
That's out of the question. My mom won't allow it. She's absolutely against living with Anna again.
Oh, how things have changed.
What should I do? Mia, help me out. Do something.
You're joking. You're just going to fall into hell. Later, Yosef was ordered by his mother-in-law to undergo a fertility test, fearing the real trouble if it turned out he truly had no sperm. Reluctantly, Yosef took the test, and the result confirmed he was infertile. As if that shock wasn't enough, he was demoted to a subsidiary company for getting involved with his boss's wife, effectively ending his career progression. Upon learning this, his mother-in-law screamed and raged like a madwoman. No sperm and was demoted because of messing with the boss's wife. Why did you even get involved with her?
I couldn't help it. She came on to me.
Just because she came onto you doesn't mean you should have gone along with it.
I got carried away by the moment.
And now, on top of that, paying child support for a kid that's not even your grandchild. With your salary drastically cut from the demotion, we can't even live properly. Go out and earn some money with whatever job you can find. You useless thing. Yosef, yelled at by his mother-in-law daily, fell into depression. Unable to work, he was constantly called a waste by his mother and now spends his days shut in his room, not stepping outside. According to neighbors, the sounds of his mother-in-law berating Yosef can be heard daily, a truly pitiful sight. As for me, after the divorce, I managed to find a new job. I started dating a guy I met there, and after half a year, we got married. Now I'm 4 months pregnant. I'm looking forward to becoming a mom, eagerly awaiting the baby's arrival.
Shut up, you jobless hag. Don't you dare defy me.
The one yelling at me, face beet red with anger, is my husband, Mike. And he's right. I'm not working. I've been caring for my mother-in-law, who has mobility issues, at his request.
Who do you think is the reason I'm unemployed?
It was 10 years ago that Mike asked me to quit my job. And ever since then, I've been helping out his mother, yet his words now seem so unfair. Thankfully, I get along well with my mother-in-law. It's not a case of mother-in-law issues. But, as I'm not a professional caregiver, looking after her has been quite challenging. Still, I've continued to support her because she treats me like her own daughter and Mike had pleaded with me to do so. Yet, it seems he's forgotten all about that as he smugly slams his hand on the desk. On the table lies a completed divorce paper, and I can feel my face turning red with anger. I've been seeing the daughter of a company CEO. She's pregnant, so I'm gonna remarry her. Underneath the divorce form, there's a photo. A beautiful woman with bright hair and a confident smile. As I look at the photo of the woman Mike refers to as the CEO's daughter, I struggle to hold back my laughter. It's more than just familiar. This woman is. I, Anna, am 35 years old this year, with a husband 2 years my senior, Mike. We met through an introduction from the manager of the bakery where I used to work, back when Mike was a businessman on a visit from the headquarters. It was like a simple blind date, and soon after, our marriage was quickly decided. His mother, who had become slightly disabled due to a past car accident, had gone out of her way to welcome me in her wheelchair when I first visited their home, a gesture I found profoundly humbling. She seemed to take a liking to me, smiling kindly and happily agreeing to our marriage. Considering his mother's condition, we decided to set up our home near Mike's parents. However, shortly after our marriage, before we even had a new house, an accident occurred. My mother-in-law fell while in her wheelchair. Fortunately, she wasn't in life-threatening danger, but her mobility worsened. She used to move from her wheelchair to a chair or bed with the help of a cane or handrails. But after the fall, she couldn't even get in or out of the chair by herself. With her increased needs, we started relying more on helpers, but that wasn't a complete solution. Helpers aren't free, and you can't call them 24/7. As a result, there are times when my mother-in-law is alone, especially during the night when visibility is poor. She laughed resignedly, saying we might have no choice but to rely on a nursing home, but Mike put a stop to that. He pleaded with me to take care of her, promising to work more and earn more than before. By this time, my own parents had passed away. Not that it was the reason, but with no caregiving responsibilities for my parents, I decided to take on the role of caring for my mother-in-law. Of course, there's a lot I can't do as an amateur, and no matter how hard I try, I can't match a professional. But I agreed to Mike's request, hoping to be of help to his kind mother. Living with my mother-in-law right after getting married and taking on the role of her caregiver was a different kind of challenge compared to other newlyweds, but it turned out to be simpler than I imagined. My mother-in-law was used to her physical limitations and was good at communicating her needs to Mike and the helpers. She meticulously taught me what she wanted and how I could assist her. Moreover, she never had the attitude that she deserved care just because she was the mother-in-law, always expressing her gratitude. There were no issues between my mother-in-law and me, but the relationship between Mike and me began to cool down. The plan was for both of us to work, but the pressure of being the sole breadwinner and supporting a disabled mother and a wife who had quit her job to provide care must have been overwhelming for him. That stress began to manifest, and gradually Mike started directing his frustrations at us. If I questioned Mike for coming home late at night without any notice, he'd snap, saying a jobless person like me had no right to comment on his work engagements. When I'd call him for not returning home past dinner time, he'd casually mention he was on a business trip. My protests were met with harsh responses, telling me not to complain when I'm being provided for. Every time he referred to me as jobless, I'd counter strongly, reminding him whose wish it was that I quit my job. Seemingly out of retorts. Mike began to avoid coming home to escape our conversations. He'd time his returns for when I was out shopping, making brief appearances to hurriedly eat the food I had prepared and then leaving as if fleeing. He'd dump his laundry in the basket and leave, and one day I noticed a change in his wardrobe. He started wearing brand-name dress shirts, and stylish ties and tie pins began appearing in his room. The familiar suits were stashed at the back of the closet, replaced by what seemed to be newly purchased custom-made ones or those of noticeably higher quality. Mike's income hadn't changed, nor was he making extravagant purchases on credit cards. But it was clear he was spending beyond our means, and sure enough, a check on our savings showed signs of significant withdrawals.
Hey, why did you use the savings without telling me? How much did this suit cost? What are you thinking, spending thousands of dollars all of a sudden?
I was about to plead for more consideration when Mike cut me off, yelling, "Enough!" This is how Mike has been lately. He doesn't listen to a word I say and interrupts with brute force.
I'm fed up. Day in, day out, it's all about enduring and saving. The atmosphere at home is just depressing. Who do you think is earning the money here? This argument again? It was you who wanted me to quit my job to take care of your parents.
I find myself returning the same words because he always gets angry in the same way. I even suggested that my mother-in-law could use a day service so I could work, even if just for a few hours. But Mike took it as a blow to his pride, yelling, "Are you saying I can't provide for my wife and parents?" So, I make do, planning meals bi-weekly and doing grocery shopping. I stock up by freezing make-ahead meals and sale items. But then Mike comes home unexpectedly and devours everything, which ends up increasing our grocery bills. If only he'd come home to eat every day, I wouldn't need to make these emergency shopping trips. He doesn't want me to work, nor does he help with saving money. Yet, he always talks as if he's the victim.
Anna, can I talk to you for a sec?
When our arguments heat up, my mother-in-law always intervenes with her calm voice. Her interruption makes us pause and regain our composure. When we go to her, it's usually for something trivial. It's clear she's just trying to give us a break.
"I'm sorry for being such a bother,"
she says with an apologetic smile, asking for her socks to be changed because she's cold. At moments like these, I feel like the only good thing about marrying Mike is that I get to call this kind woman my mother. One night, when putting Mike's shirt in the washing machine after he took a shower, I noticed a stain at the chest area. Thinking it needed spot cleaning, I unfolded it to find it was light red lipstick. Mike's train isn't usually crowded, and he didn't smell of alcohol, so it's unlikely from a bar. After a moment's thought, I discreetly hid the shirt, tossing a new one into the machine instead. While Mike was showering, I quickly checked his wallet. True to his careless nature, it was stuffed with receipts. Among them, I found receipts from a hotel and a women's brand store, and with a sigh, I quietly pulled them out. I was sure of it, infidelity. I had this nagging feeling all along. Despite our constant quarrels, Mike's recent behavior was undeniably strange. The anger that had been simmering deep inside me surged up in a fierce wave. I bit my lip so hard it creaked. "Hey." In my haste, I looked over to find her approaching in her wheelchair. She seemed to have grasped the situation, seeing the crumpled receipt in my hand and my vacant expression.
"Is Mike still in the bathroom?"
she asked, glancing toward the bathroom while I nodded silently.
"Anna, let's gather solid evidence. Tomorrow, go to a detective agency I know," she advised.
"But..." I was taken aback, but she reassured me with a gentle embrace.
"It's okay, I'm on your side."
The next day, after Mike left for work, I visited the detective agency she recommended. I handed over the shirt and receipts, bracing myself for a potentially lengthy investigation since I knew nothing about the other woman. However, the detective turned out to be quite skilled, thanks to my mother-in-law's referral. Within a week, he provided a report along with a plethora of evidence photos. The other woman's name was Lisa, a 34-year-old office worker at one of Mike's client companies. In the photos, she appeared to be wearing the same shade of lipstick that was on Mike's shirt. That evening, I decided to confront Mike. When he returned from work, I showed him the lipstick-stained shirt and the photos.
Care to explain?
I knew everything from the investigation, but I was curious what excuse he would concoct. The man who enjoyed himself while shirking household duties and caregiving responsibilities, what excuse would he offer? Mike glanced at the shirt and photos, then snorted derisively. I thought he might show some panic, but there wasn't a hint of it.
You caught it, huh?
He tossed the photos aside and stretched out nonchalantly. My mother-in-law and I were taken aback by his unexpected reaction. I know everything. I blurted out, only to be met with Mike's mocking laughter.
You're lying. You don't know anything about Lisa. She's nothing like you, a gloomy old hag. She's a wonderful woman.
Mike!
How dare you speak to your wife like that?
My mother-in-law shouted, gripping the armrests of her wheelchair, but Mike seemed indifferent.
Mom, it's okay, don't bother defending Anna. I'm going to marry Lisa, so let's just kick her out.
What? I couldn't help but let out an incredulous exclamation. Watching Mike casually dig his ear, I was filled with disbelief as he flashed a thin smile.
Lisa, yeah, she's pregnant with my kid.
It felt like a bolt from the blue. We didn't have children. Our arguments had increased, and we had stopped being intimate. I had wanted children. I thought Mike felt the same, but I never imagined he would father a child with someone else.
Don't worry, Mom. Lisa is some CEO's daughter.
Haha. I'm hitting the jackpot.
Now we can easily cover your caregiving costs.
You're shameless.
Unbelievable.
My mother-in-law trembled with rage as Mike laughed heartily, but he abruptly stopped when he noticed her shaking. He then sighed dramatically.
Being with Anna too long has made you dumb, Mom.
He smirked, looking at us disdainfully before dismissing us.
All right, that's it. I'll divorce her and cut ties with you too. Jobless hags like you are just obstacles in my life.
Unable to contain my anger, I slammed the table.
How could you say such things? This treatment is outrageous.
His words were cruel, not just to his own mother but also to me, who had dedicated a decade of my prime years to caring for her. Even though we got along, caring for my mother-in-law, who had mobility issues, was never easy. Yet I devoted myself to her care because she was Mike's mother. But my anger seemed to mean nothing to him.
Caring for parents is a wife's job, right?
He said it as if it was the most natural thing in the world, showing no appreciation for my past efforts. My mother-in-law, grasping my hand as if to protect me, rebuked him.
Anna has taken care of me with all her heart, even though we're not related by blood. Aren't you ashamed of betraying her so easily?
My mother-in-law and I were shocked by Mike's reaction, as if he'd seen something disgusting.
Shut up. I was the one earning the money for that caregiving. Once I marry Lisa, I'll leave you useless hags behind.
Enough! I couldn't believe the transformation in my husband's demeanor and shouted back at him. I firmly held my trembling mother-in-law's hand and glared at Mike.
We'll get divorced. But I'm taking my mother-in-law with me,
I declared firmly, causing a mix of surprise and confusion in her. Despite not being her biological daughter, I couldn't bear to leave her with this man.
If you're okay with it, let's live together.
She had given me a mother's warmth when I had lost my parents early. I couldn't stand the thought of leaving her with such a despicable man.
Anna, are you sure? She asked, teary-eyed, and I smiled, affirming my decision. Oh great, if you're taking her, that's a load off my back. Get up fast, this house is mine.
Mike showed no signs of remorse, casually grabbing a beer from the fridge and chugging it down while laughter from the TV he probably turned on filled the room. Mike showed no signs of remorse, casually grabbing a beer from the fridge and chugging it down, while laughter from the TV he probably turned on filled the room. We left the house with only the essentials. Mike didn't even bother to see us off. Afterward, we finalized our divorce. It seems Mike was indeed planning to remarry the CEO's daughter, as he readily paid a substantial alimony, likely funded by his new partner. Since the family home was inherited by Mike, we had no choice but to leave, but the alimony provided us with a decent sum. I quickly rented a condo and started living there with my mother-in-law. We returned to the house several times to collect our belongings when Mike was likely at work, avoiding any encounters. Yet, it seemed he disliked our visits in his absence, as our belongings started appearing haphazardly in boxes at the front door. A month after moving in with my mother-in-law, I received a call from Mike, coinciding with what was supposed to be his wedding day. We were both infuriated when he had the audacity to invite my mother-in-law to the ceremony shortly after we left. She promptly refused and blocked his number, while I hesitated to cut off all communication, fearing what Mike might do next. When I ignored the call, it rang again soon after. What was he thinking, calling his ex-wife during his wedding ceremony with another woman after such a breakup? With the ringtone not stopping, my mother-in-law and I exchanged glances, and I reluctantly answered to hear a panicked voice.
"Anna, help me!"
My ex-husband screamed almost like a shriek, so I urged him to continue reluctantly.
"What's up?"
Ideally, I wouldn't want to talk to him for even a second or a minute. Having his voice so close to my ear was nothing but unpleasant, but he seemed too desperate to care about my feelings. Undeterred by my cold tone, my ex-husband blurted out,
"Lisa, she's the daughter of a gangster."
It sounded like he was calling from the bathroom at the wedding venue, his voice echoing despite its softness. While he seemed to be shaking, I responded quietly with a "I see." Actually, I was already aware that Mike's new wife was the daughter of a gangster. The day after we left, the detective I had hired contacted me urgently. Although I was puzzled, as I had already received the investigation report, I went as told and was met with a grim-faced detective who had more to tell.
"Your husband's affair partner is indeed a CEO's daughter, but her parents are involved in organized crime. Though low-ranking, they are undoubtedly part of the mob."
The detective advised me to avoid any unnecessary involvement for safety. He sipped his coffee to calm himself.
"There's been no indication that they view you as an enemy. The generous alimony suggests they're not that interested in you."
He sighed deeply.
"Unfortunately, if you've received alimony from your husband, it's probably best not to try to get any from the woman. It's risky."
I nodded silently. The reality of dealing with the mob, something I'd only heard about in dramas, was chilling. If they weren't going to be immediately aggressive, I didn't want to provoke them further. After all, I didn't care who my husband's affair partner was. If I couldn't get alimony from her, that was fine. What I couldn't forgive was how my husband had discarded my mother-in-law and me like trash.
"Please, Anna, hide me."
No. I resolutely turned down my pleading ex-husband. From his incoherent story, I gathered that the wedding venue was swarming with intimidating guests who clearly didn't look like ordinary people. Mike's friends, who were unknowingly invited, were petrified and made a quick exit. Since my mother-in-law wasn't there, it seemed like the ceremony was filled only with the bride's family and friends.
"You guys must be struggling without income, right? I'll pay for your living expenses. So please."
He begged tearfully over the phone. I had no obligation to help this man, but I glanced at my mother-in-law to see her thoughts. She shook her head slightly. "I don't have a son," she declared, and I nodded in agreement before firmly rejecting Mike's request again. "No, thank you.
We don't want to be involved with someone who married such dangerous people. And don't worry about our finances, both my mother-in-law and I have our own income."
I could hear Mike gasping on the other end of the phone. Unbeknownst to him, both my mother-in-law and I had our own sources of income. Despite her mobility issues, my mother-in-law had taken up a home-based job to save for potential future care needs. She didn't tell Mike as the income was modest, not surpassing $1,000 a month initially. When she finally started earning a substantial amount, Mike had already developed a spending problem. She feared that revealing her income would only loosen his purse strings further, so she kept it a secret and asked me to use the money she gave me to help cover our living expenses. Inspired by her, I found home-based work I could do in between caregiving tasks. Now, our combined income was quite substantial.
Please, I'm begging you.
Mike was desperately trying to cling to any hope with me, but I casually let him know.
Oh, by the way, didn't you start dating Lisa about 4 months ago? It seems like the baby is almost 6 months along. Whose child is it, I wonder?
There was a loud thud on the other end. Perhaps he dropped his phone. I could hear him muttering in the distance.
What? Lisa's baby isn't mine?
He seems to be muttering, then whose child is it? These days, smartphones are picking up even such mutterings, indicating quite an impressive performance. Remembering the additional investigation report I received, I decided to quickly turn off the power and release the smartphone from my ear. Just before hanging up, an unfamiliar male voice came through.
Hey, Mike, everyone's waiting for the groom to come back.
Another rough voice echoed. My mother-in-law, sensing my urge to end the call, gently stopped me, and we listened intently, holding our breath.
Hey, Dad.
Mike's voice trembled, followed by a strange chuckle. It seemed the other person was the father of his affair partner.
Oh, you didn't know we were involved in the mob?
Whether Mike picked up the phone or it was picked up for him was unclear. A small shriek from Mike came through clearly.
Don't worry, we won't bite. Considering you took in our niece's kid, we won't treat you badly.
The sound of a pat on the back accompanied the man's boisterous laughter. Mike's confused voice followed.
What? Yeah, you didn't know? The kid in my daughter's belly is our gang's uncle's child.
The father laughed unapologetically, showing no remorse. My mother-in-law and I exchanged glances. What a mess Mike had gotten into. We knew the child wasn't Mike's, but never imagined it was a mobster's.
You're not thinking of divorcing my daughter now, are you, Mike? After messing with her.
The father's tone shifted from cheerful to menacing. The genuine intimidation was frightening even over the phone. Mike must have been terrified. My mother-in-law decisively turned off the phone.
Is that okay?
I asked in surprise. She shook her head lightly.
It's fine, he brought it upon himself. And do you really think those mob drama scenarios are real? Let's have dinner, Anna.
There was a chance that my ex-husband was putting on an act. With a smile at her encouragement, we reached for our slightly cooled dishes. Months later, the door was pounded with loud bangs. Without hesitation, the doorbell rang repeatedly. I paused from wiping my mother-in-law's feet, and we looked at each other.
What could it be? I'll check. Be careful, Anna. Don't open all the doors, just in case.
Supported by my mother-in-law's hand on my back, I cautiously opened the front door with the chain still on.
Anna!
There stood my ex-husband, Mike, considerably thinner, his eyes sunken with fear glaring at me. I recoiled in shock. Relieved that the chain was on.
Help me, Anna, please!
Mike's pitiful state prompted me to attempt closing the door. However, Mike managed to get his fingers on the door, trying to pry it open. Though the chain remained intact, the ease with which he could have opened the door made me bite my lip hard. However, the ex-husband hooked his fingers on the door and forced it open. Though the chain remained intact, I bit my lip tightly at how easily the door was opened.
Mom, Anna, I'm begging you!
After learning at the wedding venue that the child in Lisa's womb wasn't his, Mike had resolved to ask for a divorce post-ceremony.
I wasn't told her parents were mobsters, just that she was a CEO's daughter. And the child isn't even mine. That's ridiculous, I want a divorce.
Apparently, he had slammed down the divorce papers, but Lisa merely glanced at them before returning her gaze to her smartphone, unfazed. She lounged on the sofa, casually throwing out her legs, and remarked, "Oh, did you hear that from your ex-wife?" while nonchalantly rubbing her barely noticeable belly and fiddling with her phone.
I married you again because I heard you were having my child, he accused me. But then Misaki's old man stepped in.
Unperturbed by Mike's fear, Lisa's father tore up the divorce papers on sight. He then threatened Mike that if he truly wanted a divorce, he'd need to come up with $100,000.
$100,000!
I exclaimed, shocked by the exorbitant amount. It was clear that Mike, a mere corporate employee, couldn't possibly gather such a sum. Of course he protested. But Lisa's father was relentless, demanding compensation for the hurt caused to his precious daughter.
Lisa never loved me. She just needed a stand-in father for her child.
Mike began to cry, but I felt no pity. The amount was shocking, but so what? A peaceful marriage was unlikely once mob ties were revealed. After all, it made no sense for Lisa to marry Mike. Especially if she had to cover his divorce costs, without any benefit for her. It would be normal to suspect there's a hidden agenda. I wonder, can one really get a divorce by paying $100,000? But that has nothing to do with me or my mother-in-law. Or is he here, visiting the wife and mother he abandoned, expecting us to pay in his stead? I glare at my ex-husband with a straight face. He probably can't imagine the contemptuous look I'm giving him.
They've started escorting me to and from work so I won't run away,
Mike claims, his voice trembling as he recounts his fabricated business trip and his desperate escape. He tells us he's been visiting real estate agents during his work breaks, searching for our rental, trying to find where we live.
Listen, I don't need the full $100,000, just a bit, anything will help, please? Otherwise, I'm done for. $100,000 will settle the divorce?
I turned to her in astonishment, ready to intervene. But she smiled gently, stopping me.
Yes, with $100,000, I can divorce Lisa,
Mike said, looking up with a tear-streaked face. But there was no maternal affection in my mother-in-law's response.
Then work for it and pay yourself. We have no involvement in this.
Mike was stunned by her firm refusal.
But, Mom, I'm in trouble.
He tried to appeal, but she dismissed him with a wave.
I have no son. My family is my daughter, Anna.
Gently pushed away, Mike looked utterly defeated.
Now, Anna, let's not entertain whoever this is any longer. Let's have some coffee instead.
When I asked softly if that was okay, my mother-in-law just smiled nonchalantly. Mike could no longer call her mother. And even if he did, he would never receive a response again. He seemed to finally realize the gravity of his actions. With tears and mucus on his face, Mike looked at me in a daze.
Please don't come here anymore.
As I attempted to close the door, heavy footsteps approached. Turning my gaze, I saw a man with a large scar on his face, wearing a sly smile, walking towards us. I shuddered behind the door as the man offered a friendly smile.
Sorry about our son-in-law here, we'll be taking him back right away,
he said in a cheery voice, then forcefully pulled Mike up by his arm. The mismatch between his voice and actions nearly made me dizzy. Why are you here, Dad? Mike's feeble voice could be heard. His companions, ensuring he wouldn't escape, held him by his sides.
Worried about you wandering around a quiet residential area when you said you were on a business trip, so we came to pick you up,
Lisa's father explained, poking Mike's back as he spoke.
We'll be leaving now,
Lisa's father said, always with a smile that made him seem even more intimidating. My mother-in-law and I nodded repeatedly, feeling uneasy. I averted my gaze from Mike being dragged away and firmly closed the front door. I locked it and turned to my mother-in-law.
He really was involved with the mob. It seems so.
Our hearts were racing. We held each other's trembling hands and took a deep breath. Knowing Mike had fled once, his situation would likely become even harsher. Our involvement with them was over as long as they had no interest in us. The best course was to let time pass and forget. Soon after, my mother-in-law and I changed our phone numbers and moved to a distant town. Despite the new rental being ideal, staying there wasn't an option with those people knowing our address. Fortunately, we found another suitable place and moved without Mike or Lisa's father showing up. Though caring for my mother-in-law wasn't easy, it was a minor issue for us. She stopped her home-based job and started using day services, while I worked outside and continued my remote job. It was challenging to cover our living expenses alone, but her previous earnings helped, and we weren't struggling. We looked forward to enjoying our life together as a family of two. The annual barbecue event hosted by my husband. Amidst a sea of guests, I'm the only one running around.
There's no meat!
Mark yells at me loudly to fetch meat, and then, as if that wasn't enough, he demands there's no beer. Now he wants drinks. Mark just bosses me around, doing nothing but show off. To top it all off, he says, this year we're inviting 150 people. There's only so much one person can handle. What on earth does Mark think of me? I couldn't take it anymore and confronted Mark. Look here, don't get it twisted. You're nothing special, and you're not superior, okay? Just because you helped me out a bit, don't get all high and mighty. You're the wife, it's only natural, right? What, you want to be thanked? Are you kidding me? I was stunned by Mark's words. After 10 years of marriage, I finally understood how Mark really felt about me. Is there any point in dedicating myself to this event if that's how he sees me? What about gratitude to those around us? Does he even understand the meaning of those words? If he doesn't understand English, maybe I should teach him. At this moment, I decided I would never forgive Mark. My name is Susan Parker, a 42-year-old housewife. I live with my husband Mark, and we have no children. I met Mark when I was helping out at a bar owned by a friend. He came in as a customer. At that time, Mark had just quit his job and started his own business. I remember being struck by his enthusiastic eyes as he talked about his dreams for the future. Mark seemed to appreciate how hard I worked, and it didn't take long before we started dating and got married. At the beginning of our marriage, Mark had just started his business, so I devoted myself to supporting him. A few years into our marriage, Mark's business began to take off. Now, 10 years later, he has grown the company to the point where he employs dozens of people. And with the growth of the company, Mark began hosting a barbecue event every year after the rainy season, inviting employees and friends. What started as a small gathering has grown larger every year, and last year we had more than 30 guests. Our backyard has become too small, so we've had to start renting a larger venue. Mark's company motto is supposedly gratitude towards others. To show this gratitude, we've been hosting this barbecue entirely at our own expense. More precisely, it's been entirely at my own expense and effort. There are other things about this barbecue event that I can't stand. One of them is that despite so many people Mark is indebted to gathering, I have never once been introduced as his wife. Mark, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, warns me, don't you dare speak more than necessary to the guests, and definitely don't introduce yourself as my wife. Without understanding why, I comply with Mark's instructions, but I can't help feeling suspicious. When the barbecue takes place, Mark just drinks, laughs loudly, and schmoozes with the guests, while I do all the behind-the-scenes work without any help from him.
There's no meat!
Mark calls me over loudly to bring meat, and then there's no beer. Next, he demands drinks. I rush around the event venue saying, I'll bring it right now. Far from appreciating my solo struggle, Mark chides me in front of everyone, you're slow. What are you doing? Sorry everyone, she's not organized. It's all me doing the shopping, fire preparation, venue arrangements, food preparation, and drink setup, so a little delay should be excused. Mark supposedly has a secretary at the company, but I wish he would delegate at least some of the menial tasks to her. I wonder how the guests view me, sweating and running around alone at this event every year. Without being able to greet anyone as his wife, I might as well be mistaken for outsourced staff Mark hired. It's depressing when I think about it. Still, I tried my best to entertain the guests. But Mark, unhappy with my actions, nagged me after the guests left.
If one of my employees moved as slowly as you did, they'd have been fired long ago. Always be aware of your surroundings, refill glasses immediately. Don't make the guests uncomfortable. When I say I can only do so much by myself, Mark doesn't listen. How can you not manage that much alone? Then what's your value? You don't work and just stay at home, so at least be of some use to me.
Mark, who became more disdainful towards me after we got married. He's dedicated to his work, but he's always been arrogant, a perfectionist, and prideful. At first, I endured his heartless words for the sake of Mark and his company. I've experienced hair loss from stress, cracked nails, and cried alone in my room. But I endured, so Mark could focus fully on his work. Yet every year, my stress peaks at this barbecue event. The scale of the event and Mark's demands were wearing me down both mentally and physically. And now, the time for our annual barbecue event has come around again. Mark, who is usually hardly ever at home, was unusually sitting in the living room. He was sitting on the sofa, arms crossed, muttering to himself. It seems he was thinking about the event's planning. This year marks the 10th anniversary since I started my business, so I want to make the event memorable. That's what Mark started saying. I was hoping that, for once, we could go to a luxury inn or a theme park. That way, I wouldn't have to deal with the exhausting task of entertaining a large number of guests. I wouldn't mind paying for it all myself, that's how painful this event has become for me. After thinking for a while, Mark seemed to have an epiphany and smiled. Yeah, this is good, let's do that, he muttered to himself happily before heading back to his room. What on earth had Mark thought of? A hint of anxiety crossed my mind. The next morning, Mark handed me a few sheets of paper stapled together. They looked like presentation materials. The cover read 10th Anniversary Corporate Event, Tentative. I flipped to the first page, and I was shocked. It read number of participants, 150. 150 people? Could this be a typo? I instinctively asked Mark. Mark, this 150 people thing. My hope of it being a misprint was dashed by Mark's next words. This year we're inviting 150 people. Employees, friends, everyone's families are welcome to the barbecue. Remember the new spacious campsite that opened recently? It seems we can reserve it entirely. I'll leave the booking and arrangements to you, take care of it. Mark said this cheerfully and then left for his office in a good mood. I was in despair. The 10th anniversary event was neither a luxury inn nor a theme park, but a gigantic barbecue for 150 people. This presentation material included details on when to send out invitations, how to confirm attendance, and more. It also listed the required food and equipment. A tremendous amount, considering it was for 150 people. Expecting me to handle everything from office work to pre-event preparations and entertaining on the day itself was just too much. No matter how many times I looked at Mark's unreasonable proposal, I felt nothing but anger. What does Mark think of me? Never being introduced as his wife to the people at the company he owes so much to, is that common? I, too, want to greet and thank the company people as his wife. Am I really Mark's wife if even that is not allowed? That night, when Mark came home, I finally expressed my feelings. Mark, about this barbecue event, you said it's a commemorative event, right? So, this time I want to greet everyone and say thanks. Without even thinking, Mark immediately shook his head vigorously and said, Nah, we don't need that. Don't you dare greet or anything like that. As usual, I shouldn't speak to the guests, I must not reveal that I'm his wife. I should just entertain the guests, that was Mark's wish. Why can't I, as his wife, say that I am? Why does Mark adamantly hide my existence? Though I have doubts, my point wasn't finished. Also, this scale of event is too much for me alone. Can't we ask your secretary or someone from the guests to help? When I said that, Mark visibly became upset. You serious with that? If so, you really don't get it, do you? I was puzzled, what does he mean by not getting it? You know the motto of my company is gratitude to those around us, right? This event is a show of appreciation and gratitude for the employees and friends who have supported me. How could I make my secretary or guests work? Think before you speak. Mark yelled. Which mouth is speaking of gratitude to those around us? I became sad and couldn't help but confront Mark. So, I'm not considered one of those around you? I've tried to support you so you could work hard these 10 years. Don't you appreciate me at all? Not even a little gratitude? Mark let out a big sigh.
Look, don't get it twisted. You're not great or anything, okay? Just because you helped me out a bit, don't get all high and mighty. You're the wife, it's supposed to be like that, right? What, you want to be thanked? Are you kidding me? Know this, I'm the great one, I'm the one everyone admires. Things can go on without someone like you. In fact, things might even run smoother without a useless woman like you.
I was stunned by Mark's words. After 10 years of marriage, I finally understood how my husband truly felt about me. Is there any point in dedicating myself to this event if that's how he sees me? So, understood. Then, I'll do nothing this year, I won't participate in the event. Is that okay? Mark frowned for a moment, then glared at me but said, I don't care. I was surprised at how readily he agreed. However, what Mark said next was unbelievable.
In that case, we're getting a divorce. It makes sense, right? If you're not helping, there's no point in having a wife, right? And if you're not participating, bring your parents or family to help out. Your family isn't my family, so I don't care if I make them work.
He thought he could control me with the word divorce, but I was not shaken. Instead, I felt intense anger knowing that Mark never considered my family as his own. Back then, since Mark had just started his business, we didn't have a wedding ceremony. He said he would formally meet my parents once he was established, but even after 10 years, that has not been done. Yet my family, who believed in us and watched over us quietly and warmly, was thought of by Mark in such a way. To top it off, Mark said this with a high laugh. Your parents are probably just retired and have too much free time on their hands. At that moment, I decided I would never forgive Mark. What about gratitude to those around us? Does he even understand the meaning of those words? If he doesn't understand English, maybe I should teach him. I returned to my room without saying a word. And as Mark instructed, I called my father to ask for help and told him everything that had happened over the last 10 years. My father said I understand, and offered words of comfort for enduring these 10 years. Then, I'll go to the city hall to get the divorce papers first thing tomorrow, I told my father and hung up the phone. Mark's 10th business anniversary barbecue event will surely be a joyous occasion. And then, the long-awaited day of the barbecue event arrived. I entered the reserved private campground early in the morning to prepare. Despite declaring non-participation and abandoning helping, in the end, I was forced to assist by Mark. Since that day, Mark has hardly come home. Sometimes he comes to pick up some belongings, but we hardly talk, he just gives me instructions for the event's menial tasks, and then leaves again. Mark has always been busy and seldom at home, so I don't mind at all. In fact, I feel refreshed without him around. Looking at the blue sky at the campground, I reflected on the past 10 years. To put it mildly, I never felt truly happy. It was tough and painful. But thinking that it all ends today makes it seem bearable. A little later, my father arrived at the campground in his car. This time, my father and even my brother have agreed to help out entirely. It's a nice day, my father said with a smile, making me feel guilty, so I said, I'm sorry, Dad. Sis, everyone has arrived. From a large van, my brother and several young men got out. My brother, having heard about my situation from my father, had thankfully called in his colleagues from work to help as reinforcements.
Thank you all for helping out today.
I thanked everyone who was assisting. My father accompanied me for the shopping the day before. The setup at the venue was being done together with my brother's friends. My brother said, I often camp solo, so leave the fire starting to me, and efficiently got the fire going. My father, who enjoys cooking, volunteered to take charge of the grilling. Not a single person had a sour face, and no one was pushing their tasks onto someone else. We were all cooperating in the preparation. For the first time, I found the preparation for this barbecue event enjoyable. "Hey, you working properly?" About 30 minutes before the event started, Mark arrived. My brother's colleagues were there, but they were taking a break after just finishing the setup. My father and brother were a bit away, managing the fire. Mark didn't greet or thank everyone who came to help. Instead, he said something incredibly rude: "Don't just sit around, find some work to do. And you guys, don't talk to my guests." I was about to argue with Mark, but one of the friends calmed me down, saying it's okay. Mark came up to me and said, "You, after all this, still don't want to divorce me, huh? That's why you're panicking and helping out, but it's too late. I want to divorce you, no matter how much you cry and beg." He's always been so full of himself, I thought calmly. After all, I came here intending to divorce. "Yeah, it's okay. I'll grant your wish and divorce you. I came here today to have you sign this. You need it, right?" I said with a smile, handing Mark the divorce papers and a pen. Mark's face twitched a bit. Maybe he hadn't expected me to agree to the divorce. Well, without me, he'll miss having someone to handle his chores and menial tasks. There was never any love to begin with. I urged Mark to fill out the divorce papers quickly. "What, you got it already? Fine, I'll sign it as much as you want." Mark snatched the pen from me and quickly filled in his name and address on the form, signed it and shoved the papers back at me roughly. "Thank you, I'll submit this. Since it's our last day as a married couple, let's enjoy it." At my words, Mark looked perplexed. "Don't worry, I won't talk to the guests, so you can relax," I told him, and he seemed a bit relieved and left the area. He must have had his reasons for not wanting anyone to know I was his wife. I have an idea why, but that's a story for later. Is that Mark? After Mark left, my father and brother, who had been managing the fire a little distance away, came over. Mark hadn't even tried to greet my father, even though they were not far apart. I truly felt sorry for having married such a man. He's still got arrogant attitude. It seems my brother had some acquaintance with Mark. Then, my brother told me facts about Mark I didn't know. I was not surprised by anything I heard. I was already planning to divorce him. But if there was evidence of these facts, all I could do was act on them. I was truly grateful to my brother for enlightening me. The event started at 11 a.m. There were a few guests arriving at the venue, but nowhere near the 150 people expected. No families were in sight either. My father and brother were lighting the fire, while my brother's friends and I stood by with drinks ready for the guests. Then, a young woman came jogging over. Probably in her late 20s. She had long hair tied back and wore a sun cap. Dressed simply in a t-shirt and jeans, but it was clear she was quite beautiful. She must be Mark's secretary. I am Mark Carter's secretary. Who sent out the invitations for today's event? The beautiful woman asked us coyly, looking at our faces in turn. She seemed unsure of herself. Probably instructed by Mark to ask. Mark knew I had sent them, which was insincere of him. I admitted that I was the one who sent them. Excuse me, but were all the guests listed definitely sent invitations? I informed the secretary that indeed, all listed guests had been sent invitations, that Mark had confirmed it, and that I had the receipt from sending them all at once. I had anticipated being asked such questions. I had prepared evidence just in case. The secretary looked troubled and said, "It seems like the turnout isn't very good. Mark is worried. Especially since some of the company's major investors and their sons, who are important clients, haven't shown up. He's quite anxious." Excuse me, but did you really send out invitations to everyone? I reaffirmed that I had indeed sent them without fail. The secretary replied, "I see. Thank you. I'll be leaving then," and left. As the secretary left, Mark came storming in with an angry demeanor. "Hey Erend. Did you really send out the invitations? If you did, why are there so few guests? Being called errand instead of by name was degrading to anyone.
Don't ignore me. There's not even 50 people here, let alone 150. Hey!
I faced the raging Mark and showed him a piece of paper. The guest list Mark had sent me for this event included names of his company's employees and friends. Additionally, as the secretary mentioned, names of executives and major investors from affiliated companies were also listed. Typical of the cunning Mark. Mark wanted to show off to his business partners and investors that he was adored by those around him. I knew his motive but understood such an event's sleaziness wouldn't attract business partners or investors. Still, I had sent invitations to everyone listed with all my heart. At the end of each invitation, I included, if unable to attend, please send your reason for absence to the following email address. Anonymity is acceptable. Your feedback will be used for future event planning. As a result, I received a plethora of anonymous emails. The paper I showed Mark summarized the reasons for absence. Most were harmless excuses like family commitments or prior engagements, but some people sent their true feelings anonymously. I'm tired of listening to the boss bragging every time. It irritates me that he hosts fancy events without repaying the money he owes. Don't invite me just to show off when we're not even close. Who is Mark? It's sad to see a staff member running around alone. Mark, you should help out. Mark's eyes widened as he read the list. His face turning red with anger. Who the hell sent this? As it's anonymous, I don't know. And no, this isn't fake. Believe it or not, that's up to you, I responded as Mark ranted. I don't care about such people. Truly self-centered. Gratitude to those around us, indeed, is laughable. Then he focused only on the investors. Didn't you get a response from Mr. Parker, the major investor? Of course, he would worry. Without this investor, Mark's company wouldn't survive. Today was supposed to be the biggest chance to show off to the major investor. So, I don't know. If they were such important guests, you should have personally invited them yourself. I said to Mark as a matter of fact. Mark frowned and muttered under his breath. I don't know their personal contact info. It turns out he had met them but couldn't even remember their faces. Pathetic. You dared to invite them to this event with such a weak connection. Moreover, you don't even know what these important people look like? What if they were here? You'd be totally embarrassed. Mark glared at me. He must have been irritated for hitting the nail on the head. I was no longer afraid since I didn't need to tread lightly around Mark's mood anymore. Also, here's something else anonymous. Showing off that pretty secretary of yours is annoying. Pretty secretary, interesting. As I read it out, Mark snatched the paper from me and threw it into the barbecue fire. The paper turned to ash in an instant. Don't get too cocky, you. We're getting a divorce, so it's none of your business. He must really think that way. If so, he's severely lacking in knowledge, which I guess I need to teach him. It was exactly noon. Although fewer than expected, guests are still guests. Today, I am here to perform my last duty as Mark's wife. So, I wanted to serve the guests who had arrived with due respect. My father and brother were grilling meat, and I was serving it. My brother's colleagues were filling up any empty glasses with drinks. With more hands on deck, the hospitality seemed more fulfilling than in previous years. The attendees seemed to be mostly Mark's employees who couldn't refuse his invitation or friends who owed him in some way. But there were also those who genuinely respected Mark. Mark, as usual, was sitting proudly among the guests. The self-satisfied, self-praising egomaniacs go on and on about how hard they have worked for the past 10 years, how amazed they are at their own business acumen, how easily they are endeared to others, and on and on. I wonder what the guests, forced to listen to this, were really thinking. Probably every year, they have been subjected to the same stories. I even feel sorry for it. For all the guests who gathered for Mark's sake, I decided to make my final address as his wife.
Thank you all for joining us today at Mark Carter's 10th business anniversary event.
I stepped in front of the guests and thanked them. The guests started to murmur, wondering what was happening, and Mark looked at me, shocked. I no longer needed to adhere to Mark's instructions. For these 10 years, I intended to support Mark as his wife, but it seems I have failed and am no longer qualified to be his wife. The murmur among the guests grew louder. Wait, that woman who ran around at the event every year was his wife? She was treated so badly, unbelievable. Wow, Mark, that's low. You didn't take care of your wife at all. This must have been a significant reason why Mark never wanted to admit I was his wife. While claiming gratitude to those around us as his motto, he was exploiting me. Mark tried to stop me from speaking, but he was held back by colleagues from my brother's company. Though I will no longer be his wife, I wish Mark Carter all the best in the future. Saying that, I showed my gratitude again.
You son of a gun!
Mark looked like he was about to lash out, and the guests expressed their disapproval. Mark, you said you valued family. That was a lie, huh? Disappointing. Are you really abandoning such a hardworking wife? Are you sane? What will you do now? Are you going to marry your secretary? That was asked by my brother. Didn't you say that at a drinking party we attended together?
Who are you? I don't know you. Stop lying.
Clearly, Mark's behavior is off. He is visibly shaken. My brother continued with a smile. I am your wife. Susan's brother. It was strange, you were married to my sister, yet you claimed to have a close relationship with your secretary. Ah, do you want to see the evidence photos? Shall I show them to everyone? My brother said as he pulled out several photos from his breast pocket. They were of Mark and his secretary, in intimate poses. Yes, this was about 3 years ago, I believe. And this one is from last year. You should have met me several times by now. It's unfortunate you don't remember. At that time, you said you wanted to marry this woman. I see the relationship has continued. I had been informed of these facts by my brother before the event started. My brother knew about Mark's infidelity but kept it a secret out of concern for me. Despite his smiling face, it seemed like anger was boiling inside him. The guests' gaze towards Mark turned even sharper. They looked at him as if he were tainted. You. What do you think you're doing with this? Your tiny company, I could crush it in no time. My brother calmly asked, and how would you crush it? You seem to know nothing, so let me enlighten you. I have big investors who believe in my philosophy. Their son was supposed to do business with my company. The scale of money we're talking about is different from yours, man. I could crush your company with money. Using a barely connected investor as a shield, Mark was smug. Then, my father also approached and said, Mark, enough is enough. What do you want, old man? Stay out of this. My brother warned him not to use harsh words towards our father. Mark glared at me. Susan, you're the worst, and so is your brother. And now your father too. What's wrong with your family? Really horrible. Mark's pride was sky high to the end. Even in this situation, he couldn't see his own faults. Mark, it's truly unfortunate. My father really believed in your gratitude to those around us. But over these 10 years, you've drastically changed. You've turned people around you from objects of gratitude into objects to use. Mark looked dumbfounded, as if he couldn't grasp what I was saying. Nevertheless, because you were my spouse, my father has been financing you all these years, hoping for your success. Mark's eyes widened suddenly. You had no interest in me, so you forgot my maiden name. My maiden name is Parker. Susan Parker.
Parker! Then, the son is…
My brother raised his hand and said, Hi, that would be me. Mark's face turned pale. The invitations reached both me and my father. As you've noticed, the deal is off. Of course, after how much you've disrespected our family. And normally, not remembering faces? Seriously? Since you and I are divorcing, naturally, my father's funding will cease. My condolences.
Divorce is a matter between spouses, and I understand that sometimes it's unavoidable.
But you've treated Susan too poorly. Without gratitude towards the people closest to you, your family, it seems there's no reason to continue funding. Mark collapsed to his knees. Without a rebuttal, he must have realized his life was in ruins. But my retaliation wasn't over yet.
I hate to add to your despair, but I'll be claiming compensation for your infidelity. It seems you weren't aware, so let me inform you. In cases of divorce due to infidelity, you're considered the guilty spouse. Compensation ranges from about $20,000 to $60,000. And I'll be claiming from your secretary for emotional distress damages. A lawyer will contact you with the details. Also, I'll be billing you for the event expenses I've covered so far, just so you know.
After hearing my story, the beautiful secretary, who was Mark's affair partner, tried to sneak away from the scene. But she was surrounded by other female guests and seemed to have no escape. Mark, on the spot, hung his head as if bowing to the ground. The guests gathered around him as if to encircle him, pitying Mark, who had lost everything. The sound of the barbecue flames crackling filled the venue. A month has passed since that fateful barbecue event. Mark's bad reputation spread quickly, and it seems his business transactions were halted by various parties. Reluctantly, Mark's company closed down after 10 years of operation. However, we couldn't let the employees of Mark's company be left stranded, so they were offered jobs at my brother's company. Everyone initially joined Mark's company, attracted by his motto of gratitude to those around us, but they couldn't keep up with the changes in Mark, who became increasingly unrecognizable. It turns out Mark had been conducting business in rather dubious ways, borrowing money from friends and causing considerable inconvenience. I've repaid those friends from my own pocket and planned to have Mark reimburse me, adding it to the alimony. Mark, abandoned by the beautiful secretary and without a job, is now eking out a living through day-to-day odd jobs. Sometimes, I get calls from Mark on my smartphone, but I've never answered them. Letters also arrived in the post, but I threw them away without reading. What is there to talk about now, after all? The sparkle in Mark's eyes I once knew has long gone. I feel no remorse or sentiment for him anymore. As for me, like Mark's former employees, I am now gratefully working at my brother's company. It's a wonderful environment where people truly value and appreciate each other, and I am enjoying my work every day. The house where I lived with Mark was originally a gift from my father, so I continue to live there alone. Now, I look forward to visits from my brother and his family, our parents, and colleagues from work. I am living happily in the present, making up for the tough 10 years. I will continue to never forget gratitude to those around me and live life brightly and positively.